पाजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह पाजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह गुर सेवा ते भगत कमाई तब ये मानस देही पाए इस देही को सिमरै देव सो देही भज हर की सेव सो देही भज हर की सेव भजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह.
Okay, well, welcome friends to another podcast in the Holy Truth series, given as always in the name of the Supreme Lord, who once again wishes to impart the very highest truth of what many call God, life and creation to the sincere seekers of the world, especially for the modern age. That's further supported by the Holy Masters, perfect saints and noble mystics of Sant today. Now this high truth of the ages is the noble path of Sant, or path of the true saints, also known as the universal truth, true spirituality, or true religion, that is so graciously gifted to seeking humanity by the great holy masters, perfect saints, and noble mystics in every age, who are themselves the true representative of the Supreme Lord even today. And although little known among the masses, once encountered, a sincere truth seeker can easily recognize that this noble path or true way encompasses all true faiths and beliefs as the noble source of all, details of which can be found in our humble literature, spiritual centers or YouTube channel, as well as in the Holy Discourse series of ISTAuk.com. But before I begin today's session of spiritual questions and answers, I would first like to make a short introduction about who we are and what we represent here today. We are the International Spiritual Truth Association, or ISTAuk for short. And although now global, we originally set up in 2016 in the UK by request of the Holy Masters of the day, who derived their authority from Great Master Baba Savan Singh Ji of the holy lineage of Sant in India, the Levant and Persia. Now our given mission is simple: to tell the full truth about true spirituality or true religion from the Supreme Lord's point of view, especially for the modern age, while also correcting the confusions of the past and even that of the present about what is the real truth. Yet this high teaching is not new. It is the age-old path of true spirituality known today as the holy truth of Sant, which in fact has been discreetly taught throughout the ages to the most sincere seekers of the time, alongside the more familiar religious or philosophical teachings that we all know of. Indeed, Holy Masters tell us that the simple teachings of mass religion and mass philosophy are only there to elevate the masses to the position of higher truth seeking, so that they can understand and ultimately practice true spirituality or true religion. Therefore, our mission here today is simple: to impart the very highest truth of the Supreme Lord to those who wish to know, with all the love, grace and wonder that such a gift entails. Now for those who do listen and take heed, Holy Masters tell us that they are indeed the most fortunate ones of humanity. As for myself, I am a sincere devotee of the very highest truth of Sant, who has given his life in the service of the true Lord. As such, I do not seek any recognition, praise, or reward, as I only act with the authority and by request of the Supreme Lord itself, and the Holy Masters of today, to simply tell the full truth of God, life, and creation for the modern age. I humbly speak, therefore, as one who has been gifted with true knowledge of that high truth, and as one who lives in the Supreme Lord's will. Thus I offer my humble demonstration and knowledge to all who seek the same. Now, as a friend on this noble path to God realization, I only ask that you put aside my human form, and instead listen to and take heed of the loving message that the Supreme Lord has to offer you via this humble form, who has himself been transformed by the Holy Masters of today. Thus I represent the proof that truly anyone can rise above their given karmic role, to become truly noble once again by the true Lord's grace, if only they earnestly seek it. Therefore, everything I shall share with you today is a gift of wisdom, direct from the true Lord itself, for the sincere seekers of high spiritual truth. In this way I am a humble servant and a perfect friend, whom the true Lord has gifted with direct knowledge of the holy truth, which I have been asked to share with you. So although I shall speak with the authority of one who has been instructed to do so by the Supreme Lord, please do not attempt to praise or glorify this humble servant in any way, for you too are all divine beings undergoing a human experience in this lifetime, though you may not yet be aware of this. Therefore, what is given to me freely by the highest authority, I give to you the same. In return, I only ask that you open your heart and mind to the holy truth that the Supreme Lord has to offer you. Now, for those who need further assistance, they may privately contact the main speaker directly via email or video by first subscribing to our valuable information service at ISTAuk.com, and then requesting the direct contact details of our main speaker from our administrators. He will endeavour to answer all spiritual queries within 48 hours of receipt. But please be patient if he should take a little longer due to his busy schedule and sheer number of inquiries. So thank you. Before we begin today's talk, I would like to talk about a short talk on karma about before the question and answer sessions, because it must be made clear that the entire shadow creation, from the ninth realm down to our gross physical or zero realm, is solely made up of pure conscious energy or supreme consciousness that most refer to as God and nothing else. Everything is thus conscious energy in forms. Indeed, for the purpose of manifesting creation, supreme consciousness divided itself into two fundamental forms of existence: the inert consciousness of substance and the active consciousness of life forms. Together, these two fundamental entities are the base components of all that exists in creation, including us, headed by the supreme consciousness as its source, governor, and overseer. Now, among all life forms, totaling 8.4 million species or entities, the sole purpose of being born human, with its level of conscious awareness that allows us to think, reason, and act in a way that can achieve perfect understanding of the entire creation of consciousness, is to indeed realize that sacred truth and bond with that truth in such a way so as to become perfect once again, just like that sacred or perfect truth. This means becoming whole again, or one with divine truth. Therefore, seeking, practicing, and realizing that high truth is the actual objective of human existence, while playing the game of karma for the mind's entertainment. All other activities that we as human beings engage in serve no lasting purpose or merit, and will never completely satisfy the mind. There is no end to the merry-go-round of karmic existence, and no lasting joy, peace, or fulfillment in it. The tragedy, though, is that despite being born human, most human beings do not seek the reason or truth of their uniqueness in creation, and instead simply take it for granted that they exist the way they do, despite observing that all other life forms around them do not have the same faculties. We call these unaware human beings blindly ignorant and lost in endless wanderings. They are always in a state of flux, fear, or hope, but never, never at peace. They never stop to think why they are so unique among all other life forms they know, in their ability to seek, reason, and observe the wonder of creation itself, unlike all other life forms. Indeed, in utter ignorance, these lost human beings behave like human animals of mere biology, as they do not realize how rare the human form is, one form in 8.4 million forms that has no comparison. They do not realize that they have been through at least 10 million plus or more other lower life existences of experience, adventure, and drama, all with suffering and struggle, only to end in the same way it started, in tears. And all this was endured in order to attain the human form. Indeed, the human form is the final destination of all other life forms in their great journey through existence. It is the end game of all life forms in creation, and the only means by which liberation from the endless trap of karmic wandering, struggles, and restlessness can be achieved, leading to peace, bliss, and true love. Thus, the true self or consciousness that is manifested within the human body longs for its true home of love, peace, and bliss. That is its true nature. Thus, we are so much more than the body we inhabit, more than the clothes we wear, more than the food we crave for, and more than the illusion we live in. For we are all divinity undergoing a human experience. But if we fail to recognize this great truth and glory that is ours, then that is just our fate. And these talks are not for them, for they comprehend it not, as they have not yet been spiritually awakened. But for those who understand all this, then how should they live their human life to make the best of this rare opportunity? Well, in simple terms, they need to follow the path of the sacred truth, the path of the true saints, while living out their karmic existence at the same time, since we are all part of this karmic world of now, with its associated duties, responsibilities, and functions to perform, till disease, aging, and death claims us as our reward. It must be further noted at this point that absolutely no one can be truly happy in this imperfect world, despite many believing that this is possible. It is most certainly not. So how else should one live in this world to make the best of their human life? Well, quite simply, be fully realized souls, known as holy masters, noble saints, and past mystics, past and present, who attained the high truth and bliss of their true home in higher creation, tell us that we should follow the three noble ways to the holy truth. These are, number 1, do not knowingly or intentionally harm either ourselves, other life forms, or the planet that sustains us. For what goes around comes around, which is the law of cause and effect, known as karma. Number 2, do not judge, vilify, or condemn creation or its inhabitants, yet fulfill our karmic duties, responsibilities, and obligations to the best of our ability, without attachment to the illusion of it all. In other words, just go with the flow, in a wise and detached manner, yet with full attention to fulfilling our given roles for the continuity of creation, with a peaceful and joyful heart, incorporating compassion, kindness, forgiveness, patience, tolerance, and fortitude in all that we say or do. And finally, number 3, earnestly seek the high truth of our existence, of our mysterious consciousness, that allows us to uniquely query the purpose and origin of both ourselves and creation itself, unlike that of all other life forms. It is really that simple. But many elaborate methods have been employed historically and even today to achieve this high goal, including the adoption of philosophy, religion, or spirituality with its rituals and ceremonies. Yet, the very highest truth is actually very simple and straightforward. So, let's now expand upon all this by exploring the questions raised by our listeners and the audience. So let's begin.
Thank you. So the theme for this Q&A satsang is Pious Living, Why is it important? Subtitle, Vegan Lifestyle and Moral Living. First few questions relate to pious living itself. I'm going to read a little sentence and then there's 2 questions.
Okay.
But I can repeat them. To live a life of purity in thoughts, words and deeds, or as a brahmacharya, one needs the mercy and grace of the Lord Master. First question. What activities should one do to earn such spiritual merit or attain the mercy, grace and blessings of the Lord or Master? And the second question relating to this, can you also differentiate between the following: karmic good deeds, spiritual merits, grace and blessings?
Okay, that could be a satsang in itself, that question.
So
I think I've answered a lot of that in the short introductory talk, but I'll just elaborate a little further on the specifics. I think it started off with what one needs to
earn such spiritual merit.
earn merits, spiritual merits and so on. The only thing that counts as a human being is seeking the highest truth, no matter what your circumstances. It doesn't matter what you're doing in your life, whether you're living what you could say a holy life or an unholy life. What matters is, if you're a true seeker, if something within you starts questioning the very existence of life itself, on what your role is in it, who you are, and everything about you, then that means that you have been spiritually awakened by the Supreme Lord, and this is grace. It has nothing to do with the mind. Actually, spirituality is acausal. It is not something that is generated by the mind or the body or anything of the substance of creation. It is generated only by the pull of the Lord for that particular disciple or prospective disciple. When the Lord says that that time has come for the disciple to return home, the machinery of salvation or rescue begins, with the Lord implanting within that one the feeling of questioning life, what it's all about, and not being satisfied any longer, being fed up with the merry-go-round of life, seeing all what they see about them. And they start asking questions. So we call this person a seeker. And this seeker begins with a spiritual awakening of the soul that in turn stimulates a higher mind, so that the higher mind can start asking these questions. Because without the higher mind being awakened, the mind would never ask these questions. It would blindly go about, like the human animals in existence, who blindly go about existence, despite witnessing all the greatness they see around them. They never think to question it. What is it all about? What does it mean? How marvelous it is? What is this wonder? Why are we alive and the rock not? They don't question that this entire creation seems to be a very interesting and wonderful place. Only scientists, philosophers, religious people, they start to question a little bit. So they've been spiritually awakened a little bit. And as that spiritual awakening grows, because it's been fed by that inquiry, then the mind comes on board and is developed. And as that happens, the soul as well is pulling the mind to a higher state of thinking. So all this happens from the level of the soul, unseen by the mind, yet the credit is given to the individual. So we see somebody who is spiritually seeking or a noble person, we say such a great man or woman, they're so good and they're so noble. But the truth is that they have nothing to do with it as a character. It is the Lord that's pulling on the soul, awakening the soul, which is pulling them up, and they're totally unaware of their soul. So how can they take the credit for something they're not even aware of? They don't even know who the doer is. But we give them credit. We divide humanity in the good and the bad and so on and all these things. But actually speaking, there's no involvement of the mind. Because the mind would never leave its domain, would never leave its realm. A worm never wants to be a lion. Yeah? No matter how many lions parade around it. They don't think, oh, that's a mighty beast. I'm a lowly worm. Let me become them. No. The worm is happy to be a worm. It will never escape its limitation. And that is the state of human beings. So something higher than the mind must be involved in this process. And that is our soul. And that soul is intimately connected with the super soul of the Lord. So therefore, when the pull comes, when the allotted time in our script or journey through creation comes, we get what's called a calling. Like religions call it, I have the calling. But then you ask, why now? They don't know. Why at the calling? But that's the pull within them that comes from the level of the soul, nothing to do with the mind. The person could be a villain even, and suddenly awaken. You know, there's so many cases where somebody's discovered religion again, you know, through their villainy, and suddenly put it all down. A very, very famous one was King Ashoka of India, who was a mass conqueror, killing all the Buddhists and the Hindus at the time. Yet he eventually became a Buddhist and repented for all his sins and then started spreading Buddhism around the world. So he's hailed as a hero in Buddhism, for example, because he spread Buddhism to the Far East everywhere. He built all the stupas and the temples, ancient temples which we worship today. And few, very few remember his past, that he was a mass murderer. So it's an interesting paradox. I mean, that's just one in history that many may know of, because there's been a film made about it, for example, and it's historic. But there are many examples of this, most not so well known. But yeah, so this idea that we do something is not true. We take the credit for it. And a truly realized soul knows this. Therefore, they never say, I this. They say, he has done everything. A master or an awakened one never says, I do anything. And they never seek recognition or praise. They shun it. Because they're no different to the others. It's just that they have been awakened. And they have been pulled through. Their time has come. And now they explain to others that this is possible. And who are they telling? They're telling the people who already have that spark in them. That awakening spark. The others who live like human animals, like the worms, they don't want to know. It's not for them. So spiritual teaching is not for everybody. It's only for those who have been awakened. And therefore, they're interested in this. They want to know, what is this feeling they're having within them? Why am I having these feelings? You know, why when I look at the world, I'm no longer satisfied? You know, they don't understand all this. The mind questions itself, you know, because it doesn't have answers. It's only higher mind, when that is awakened, which is wise mind, they call it philosophy mind, wisdom mind, and so on. The mind of Brahma, which is right at the top of the mind realm. That mind can understand to a point. It can understand conceptually, but it cannot know. Knowledge only comes from the soul. Knowledge means direct experience of that truth beyond the mind. The mind cannot experience a state beyond its existence. It doesn't comprehend it. It goes over their heads. So the mind is limited like the worm. The worm cannot appreciate the life of a lion. It only knows how to be a worm and everything to do with worm. Similarly to the mind is limited, and therefore it can only understand mind things. Because of this, religion has invented something called mindfulness. And mindfulness is this idea of trying to purify the mind, elevate the mind, enlighten the mind, and it's all about the mind. Yeah, but it can never, because the mind is not perfect, you can never get perfect enlightenment, perfect wisdom, perfect illumination, or perfect salvation. It's just not possible because the mind itself is not perfect. So this is the difference between grace, which comes from the Lord, and say effort, which is based upon the role of the mind, trying to seek some philosophical or religious truth, all based on ceremony, ritual, elaborate conceptions that keeps the mind occupied, because the mind likes to do action. You see, it's an active force. So it likes to do something to earn this, and then it pats itself on the back saying, am I a good boy or girl? Look how well I'm done. Yeah, everybody's praising me, how good and noble I am. That's the mind, the ego. The mind, the origin of the mind is ego, I. So how do we earn spiritual merit? Well, the simple way is to seek the truth, as I said. But seek the truth earnestly so. But then, there's a catch. You can only do so if it's in your capacity to do so. Meaning, if you have that spark of awakening within you, then you will bother to seek the truth. And depending how much awakened it is, determines how sincerely you seek. So that's why you see this inequality on the spiritual path. Some people are at the very bottom end and they're really struggling to understand higher concepts. Or they get it to a point, but they don't truly understand it. They comprehend it not, as Jesus says. Yeah, although they see it before them. Then there are those in the middle layer who are practicing spirituality. They're getting there, but they don't fully appreciate the finer elements. And then those ones who are near the top, they've realized a certain amount for themselves. They've got that inner feeling of higher understanding, even though they don't know where it comes from, because it's not from learning. Yes, they may hear about it in the books, but how many books have we read and said that was a wonderful book on spirituality, and put it down and forgotten about it, and just do exactly the same thing we've always been doing? If books were that powerful that you could somebody simply read a passage in a book and be transformed just by reading it, well, books will be elevated to the status of the gods. Yeah, why would we need a master? So put a book in a room, get somebody to read a passage and they're instantly enlightened. That doesn't happen, not in this creation. There is another means, which means that happens from within. The law of salvation in this creation means that somebody from outside the system has to pull you up to its level. This is not a path of pushing from your down. You will never be able to push. The weight is too insurmountable for you. You have no method, but the one who's above pulling the strings, it's easy for them. Little tug on the string and you become elevated. And then you say, hey, I understand this concept now. I really do. Oh, great is me. And the one who's the wise one pulling the string smiles and says, bless the little one. They take the credit for it. I'm pulling the string. And that's how the Lord operates. The Lord is so magnificent that he lets you have the credit, because this is all part of the entertainment or the illusion of life. So no saint or holy masters ever praise themselves that they have attained anything. They have been given this knowledge by their master or by the Lord directly, and from that knowledge they speak. Yeah. So this is important to understand. If somebody says that I have attained this, I have attained that through spiritual hard work and merit, run away. They're still in the mind. They're still in illusion. But when someone says, I haven't achieved anything, I've done nothing, and this has been gifted to me simply because I was a seeker, a true seeker. And even that was given to me by the Lord. I can take not even the credit for that. And that's the truth. So seeking is the answer to merit. And once you're a practitioner, then developing that seeking by inquiring within through holy meditation allows you to establish a connection with the soul. So once you feel the connection with your consciousness is awakened through spiritual practice in a higher degree, you start feeling the essence of the soul, and the mind translates this speaking of the soul, communicated, as sound and light. So this path is called the path of light and sound. But actually, this is a mind's description of it, because beyond the level of the mind, there's only awareness. There's no such thing as light and sound even. But when you're listening to it from the perspective of the mind and you're getting a glimpse of it, it comes across as sound and light, and they describe the various lights and sound that you will see within on your holy journey. But as long as you are experiencing the light and sound, you are firmly within the mind realm. Once you cross the realm of the mind, then only awareness exists. And you understand the source of this light and sound, the Shabbat, they call it the Shabbat. And it takes a different form. It's still there, it's a creative power, but it doesn't come in the form of light and sound. Yeah, so this is an important understanding. So differentiate between karmic good deeds, spiritual merits, and so on. Well, no matter how good your karma is, you'll never be saved. You could be the most perfect human being on earth. You could be a Mother Teresa times 1,000,000 and still not get saved. Because anything you do within the realm of the mind stays within the mind. No matter how good a worm is, how well it digs its burrow, and how it conducts its life, it will never be anything other than the worm. You must understand this. Egotists, or people who are so full of their identity, of their character to achieve, they celebrate the mind's achievements because that's all they have. They don't know anything else. So when they become a good person or something, they say, look at me, I'm a good person. And they jump up and down, saying to everybody how good I am. And what is the consequence of that? Because they're still within their own mind, they look upon the others and say, that one is bad because I am good. Yeah. So when a person labels themselves as good, the duality of the mind lives in a dual world of time and space, means automatically that means something else must be bad. And if somebody's not up to their level, they're bad. Yeah? And this is the problem. They are using their ego now to condemn the Lord's creation. How can such a one, who is not seeking the truth, but instead imposes their own version of the truth, the lower truth of the mind, ever raise to the higher consciousness? It's just not possible. So Holy Masters warn against this, called spiritual arrogance. And spiritual arrogance is a big problem in spirituality. You may think that somebody who's been initiated by a master, even high up, maybe a master's representative even, is full of enlightenment and truth. No. Because every role here must be karmic. That role is given based upon their karma, their association with the path from the past, their association with the master on a purely karmic level, not spiritually. In fact, anybody who's spiritually involved highly would run away from any kind of notoriety, no kind of like noticeable. They don't, unless commanded to do so, like Babaji was. He didn't want to be a master. You know, he protested for 3 years until he was absolutely told, no, you have to give satsang and start initiating. And to this day, he has never recorded a satsang or any kind of talk. Because he said, my master, Hazur Maharaji, was the greatest master for me. He has said everything already. What can I add to this? What difference can I make? So now he entertains us with questions and answers. And it is just an entertainment, which he himself has said. Because it's true. All the talks in the world cannot change a worm into a lion, cannot change a mind into a soul. They are separate entities. Therefore, they require separate means to address these issues. The mind likes intellect, talks, debates, and everything else to go round and round. It finds pleasure in them, but it does not change. The soul requires only truth. And it requires that truth not through conversations or talks, but through a direct connection with that truth, which can only happen from the higher level. So the soul itself is a completely different entity with completely different requirements to that of the mind. So this is a very important point to make for anybody who's really seriously seeking spiritual path, whether they're on the path or not. If they're true about their seeking, then they must question themselves like this. They must look, what is it that I'm actually doing that's helping me? Have I changed or improved anymore? Have I become wise in any way? Or am I still the same person with knowledge? All I know is I know the truth, but I can't practice it. I can't do it because it's not part of me, because they've not been elevated. It's a concept. Yeah, and anybody can learn concepts. You can read entire books about concepts. But are you that what you read? When it says be kind, be humble, be compassionate, be forgiving, these are all the qualities of saints. Are you that? The real test is, ask yourself coldly, look at yourself in the face and say, are you following this? Are you doing this? If you're not, don't judge anyone else. Yeah? But then when you do that, you don't judge anyway. Judgment is not in this game, in spirituality. Judgment is a thing of religion, of this so-called good and bad, to do with the mind, nothing else. And judgment has no happy ending for either one, the one being judged or the one judging. Believe me, there is no peace of mind for them. What goes around comes around. Anyway, I hope I've answered that question.
Thank you. Okay, second question around pious living. I think you've really answered this. Do we need to earn God's grace, or is it always there for us?
It is always there, actually. As I said, this happens secretly behind the scenes, and when the time is right, you are pulled to that level of awareness.
Thank you. Is it true that you can't fully manifest a noble and pious attitude using just the intellect?
That's true, because as I just mentioned, raising the level of consciousness to a higher state, the intellect is higher than the emotional mind, sure. So somebody who is looking at the intellectual game of philosophy and science, for example, definitely they're rising above the common animal emotions. They're on their way to becoming a human being. So they tend to be logical, rational, clear-minded, thinking. You know, we admire these people because they're that one step ahead. They're not perfect human beings yet, but they're not human animals either. They're kind of getting to that state where they are questioning in their own way. So yes, the intellect is a step that we all have to go through. A lot of spiritual people are stuck though in the intellect, and they have great debates about it. They go on TV and they debate everything, they talk about it all and so on. But everything that they speak of is not their experience. It's a concept. Yeah, they've heard it, they've been taught it. It's not their experience. A realized one, even somebody from the higher mind level, they actually experience a high mind state. They have some experience. We call these wisdom, people of wisdom, or partly enlightened. You know, such as the Buddha, for example, and many others who are at a stage of high evolvement, which allows them to understand the workings of the mind and its creation. And they understand it all, but they cannot get out. They cannot escape it. But they know how it all works. And they just wait for their time to get out. Because they know that despite searching the entire creation with their yogic powers, with their abilities, they cannot escape the trap. They see the trap all around them, the bars all around them. They cannot cross to the other side, no matter what they do. But because it's cyclic, in a circle, they keep on going around in circles forever until the end of creation, until somebody steps forward and say, hey, you know, you've been wandering around for eons of time, going round in circles. You didn't realize you're going round in circles because you can't see a beginning or an end. Like a circle. If you draw a circle on a piece of paper, show me the beginning or the end. There is none. Wherever point you put out, you can say that's the beginning or the end. So somebody who's going round in circle, there's no landmark to say you've crossed that point. You will think you're traveling in a straight line forever, but you're not. You're going round in circles. And that's the delusion of the higher mind. The higher mind keeps going round in circles, searching for this illusory mystery, which it can never find, thinking it may be just round the corner. But they're actually going round in circles. And unless the compassionate saints or Lord gets involved in their drama and says, okay, let's come. I'm going to show you something more than just this. And starts creating the spark of true seeking, which means not going round in circles anymore, but seeking the higher truth by connecting with that holy truth. And they start that feeling of meditation and so on. So instead of seeking and round, they're going up. They focus at the right point, connect with the master within, and the master pulls them up. Again, the Holy Master, the Lord's representative, is key to this. Without such a support, you would not know where to go. When you go within, yes, let's say you've been taught about this noble path of going straight up rather than circles. So what happens when you enter the first level? Where do you go? Unless you meet a guide, somebody who knows the way out, how would you find the way out? So this is the importance of having somebody alive when you are to put you onto the path. Yes.
Thanks. Right, next question. I am an initiate of a perfect living master. If I live by the 5 precepts, does that mean I live a pious life, or should I be doing more?
Well, just to clarify about these precepts, as mentioned in my short introduction, essentially the 5 precepts that this questioner refers to in true spirituality or Sant mode can be narrowed down to just 3. Really, to simplify, because the idea of what we're representing here in the modern age is to simplify the path from its elaborate expansion of complications to simplicity that applies to the modern day. So number 1, and the biggest one for anybody in the karmic world who wants to minimize their karmic footprint here or harm, is do no harm intentionally to either ourselves, to others, or to the planet that sustains us. Thus making sure that we do not cause intentional harm at all times. This is a fundamental law which all the precepts cover, essentially the moral code. This is the sum of all morality. If whatever you do causes harm to another, even if you perceive it to be good, it is not. It is your perception that's lacking, not the law. The law is very clear. Do no harm. There is no conditions. Simple, yeah? The only condition is intentional harm, because they understand that, okay, if you're walking down the street and you accidentally squish an insect, and you had no intention to do so, and even having realized that you feel sorrowful, that it can be forgiven. But if you see a spider walking in front of you, and because you don't like spiders, you purposely stamp on it, that cannot be forgiven. You have to go through the karma of that. So intentional harm results in karmic consequences. Unintentional harm hovers, depending on where you're heading in life. If you're a truth seeker, then that could be forgiven. If you're not a truth seeker, then there's still some karma to pay, but nowhere near as heavily as intentional. So that's number 1. So we have to make sure that we do not cause harm, true harm, no matter what the perceived good may be, and avoid absolutely its action or speech if it causes harm to test. You simply find another way. Right? Number 2, do not judge, vilify, or condemn the creation or its helpless inhabitants. For all is scripted by the Supreme Lord according to the grand plan that we do not yet understand, but instead we should live in the Lord's will for us and simply go with the flow, keeping ourselves out of harm's way and out of others' karmic business, while fulfilling our essential duties, responsibilities and obligations in life. So this is a very important point. Yeah, you focus on you. If you can be one who does not add to the harm of this world, and at the same time you're fulfilling your given responsibilities without obsession or attachment to them, then you are classed as a noble human being. You have attained the level of the yogis without realizing it. The question then is, you may not be a yogic practitioner, but such a being is a rare human being who can fulfill those 2 first ones. because they have an understanding of the truth, even though it's not their direct experience yet. They still understand it enough to follow those two precepts with conviction and confidence. Yeah. And then number 3, which is the one that separates, say, the religious and philosophical followers from the spiritual ones, is always seek the holy truth of both oneself and the creation that we exist in through higher mind inquiry at first and holy meditation or contemplation. Then all else will follow naturally. So this is the thing. Once you start making that inner inquiry, truthfully so, sincerely so, earnestly so, diligently so, then you don't have to worry about the rest of life. Everything else just follows according to the karmic law. You can't change your karma, but you don't feel it. It just goes through the motions. Yeah. So that is a better description of the 5 holy precepts of true spirituality. And if you can do that, there's nothing more you need to do. The Lord will take care of the rest. Yeah.
Thank you. What does a day in the life of a pious initiative of a perfect living master look like? Example, their approach to everyday things. Can you give examples?
I think I sort of have with the previous questions. But the important thing of somebody who lives the truly noble way of life is that it never leaves them, not for a second. That awareness or understanding of higher truth and the seeking of higher truth is always with them. Whatever they see in the world, they automatically pit that against the knowledge that they have gained through spirituality. So they are forever absorbed in this spiritual seeking concept. And if they're an initiate of a perfect living master, then they focus their attentions on everything they see to the master. They query the master and say, what is the meaning of this? What is this all about? Oh, thank you for this. Or they involve the master as the most intimate friend, the most personal friend they have, and their companion with them in life. So for them, life is not about this individual approach of a separate human being, but now as a visitor here, witnessing all the things that others witness, but they have a companion and they have an understanding that they are from a higher place here visiting this place. So a truly pious, we talk about truly pious, not pretend pseudo pious, yeah? We talk about somebody who's truly pious. They wake up with this awareness already. What is the day to provide? They do not concern themselves with what is to come. They just live in the now. So they say, right, now, oh, I am hungry, I need to use the toilet, or I need to get dressed, and they just deal with it now. But they are forever absorbed in this state of contemplation. Yeah, their mind is always in this thought process of the wonder of things, the creation, the master. Things just come to their mind constantly. So they're still living normally. Outside they look like everybody else. You know, they're getting ready in the morning, getting ready to work. But their attitude is completely different. So the pious way of life is a complete transformation of attitude. Everything revolves around the truth. And therefore, because they understand that there's a bigger picture going on, no matter what goes on at work, they don't get upset. If the boss is shouting or this or that, or they see some so-called injustice, which is a favorite, they don't react. They say, this is between them, it's their business. Remember, one of the rules are don't get involved in other people's current business. Yeah. Keep you out of it. You have enough to deal with on your own, with your own karma, believe me. You don't want to add other problems to your load. Just keep your nose clean, keep out. Right? And then they just carry on in this vein. Everything they do, like when something goes their way or helps them, they recognize that the Lord is the doer and they're grateful. So they live forever between seeking, gratitude, and compassion for all around them. They do not judge others because they know that they don't know. How could you curse somebody who doesn't know, who thinks they're right? Yeah, even if they're doing something wrong in the world's eyes, they think they're right. They have a karmic obligation to act to speak and to do whatever is written for them. How can they do anything else? Your job is to watch yourself.
But sometimes in the heat of the moment, you're not.
That's because you've lost that connection.
Yeah.
When you connect, you stay connected with a higher truth. You're constantly reminding yourself of this. You may be tempted at some point. I should intervene here. You said no. Then you step back and say, no, I should not intervene. This is not my business. Yeah, this is not directly, me. I must be careful that I do no harm. The checklist is that if I intervene, I'm more likely to cause more harm than good. Firstly, the moment you take sides in any argument, you're already causing harm because somebody's going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't take sides. Remain neutral. Right? You be the example of going with the flow, accepting what happens.
So even if, for example, you think if you say something, it's going to help somebody.
It doesn't. You can help, yes, as long as it doesn't cause harm. If your perceived help harms somebody else, then stay away.
There you go.
No, you cannot.
So
you cannot gain good by causing harm. That is a nonsense, even in logic.
Hold on. No, what I mean is, if you want to say something thinking that you're going to help someone, but inadvertently it doesn't help somebody else, unknown to
you. It doesn't help. It must not harm. If it doesn't help, it's okay, as long as it doesn't harm. So, for example, if you're taking sides in an argument, then definitely there's going to be a problem because somebody else is going to be harmed as a result. Don't take sides. If you notice when Babaji answers questions, he's very careful not to express a personal opinion to that individual. He teaches general spirituality and let them decide. Like a coach, the whole concept of coaching is not to tell you what to do, but to give you all the options and you pick. Yeah, that's coaching, the concept of coaching. So masters are like coaches. Yeah, they explain to you the concept of spirituality and you now decide what you think is best. And then you follow it. So, this is an important rule that people forget. And because they're so full of themselves, it's the ego that drives you forward. Because believe it, if you are so obsessed with perfecting your own self, you have no time to look around you. Like Hazur says, wear blinkers when you're going through the path. Hazur Charan Singh Ji Maharaj, he always used to say that. He said, why are you looking around? You have enough troubles of your own. You have enough problems of your own. You're not perfect. Become perfect. When you become perfect, then you can look around. He was very clear on this. But initiates, they don't. They busy themselves with other people's problems. They get involved. And then there's a consequence.
Okay, I'm thinking of a work situation when sometimes you get asked an opinion on somebody. Because this was asked of me.
Duties and responsibilities must be fulfilled.
Even when you know that, hold on, I don't really want to say what I want to say because it's not really...
Whatever you do, do with compassion, kindness, love. If those are your guides, then even if you inadvertently, because your intention is not to harm, remember,
exactly.
If you say something,
how you address it,
yes.
Your word.
So you have to fulfill your responsibility, but you do so in a way that does not cause harm, and only if necessary. Meaning you've been asked. The boss has said to you, "I need you to tell me, or you're out." Then fine. Your karma has placed you in that responsibility and you have to face the consequence.
Yeah. Or else you'll be...
But if you volunteer yourself to step forward...
That's key, volunteering.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Because sometimes you're going to end up being looked as if you're always sitting on the fence and you don't have
The clever thing is masters sit on the fence, but whoever says they do so. You see, because they give spiritual teaching. No, if you have something to say, which is truthful, people are going to remember that. They're not going to realize that you're sitting on the fence. But yes, you are, because creation is running like a current, like the river flows beneath you. You're on a boat. Yeah? The river carries on. Yeah? But you're worried about your manifestations in the boat and how you're going to maneuver the boat and everything. Be concerned with yourself. Don't be a watchtower for other people. While your own house is burning, you're looking out for other people's houses burning. What use is that? Put out a fire in your own home first. Then you can go out and look at others.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to morality.
Yes.
Are there different stages of morality, and if so, what are they?
Yes, because morality is a growing concept from the mindfulness state to spiritual morality, and they're quite different. So as you evolve, like with any evolutionary process, there's an evolvement of understanding. And as you understand, the moral ceiling, changes. You become more and more aware of the bigger picture. As you see more of the bigger picture, the morality naturally changes. So yes, as you evolve spiritually, you get to the point where you realize everything is the Lord's will. Hukam, 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 as the Guru Granth Sahib says. Guru Nanak's Bani and Japji Sahib. He says everything is hukam. And the entire creation is a drama staged in a dream. You have your answer. Right? Why get involved in the dream? Why not get out of the dream and seek reality? So yeah, I mean, there are stages on the spiritual journey, like with anything. You start at university, the first year you learn something, second year you learn something, third year, then you eventually qualify. The entire journey of existence is an evolvement and development and progressive process. So therefore, yes, there are stages of morality that accompany that.
Thank you. Why is it so difficult for people to realise that the biggest contributor to harming or polluting the planet is factory farming or the livestock industry?
I take it this person is a vegan, which is good, but I would say this is one factor. You see, as long as humans are involved in killing animals, they cannot have compassion or kindness in their heart. They will always want to make war among their fellow human beings. It is very rare, or in fact not heard of, for a vegan to make war on anybody. Because they do not involve themselves in the killing game, therefore that act of aggression and violence within them is not part of their makeup. They cannot muster it. They cannot generate that feeling even. So in an ideal world, yes, if everybody was vegan, there'll be no more wars, everybody will be getting together to solve the world's problems nicely. There'll be one big party here in the world. But unfortunately, that's not the case. This is an imperfect creation. Therefore, imperfections are going to be here. And that includes the dietary lifestyle. So, I mean, farming generally, but it's going to change, don't worry. Because in Europe, certainly, by the mid-2030s, the selling of any animal produce for human consumption will be banned. Not because of the moral issue, unfortunately, but because of the climate issues, feeding the population, pollution, and many other things that scientists are going to generate. But hey, it's good for the planet, even indirectly, and that's a question of doing no harm, that's fulfilling the do no harm principle. Yeah. And the benefits that happen is greater than they understand when they implement it. Yes.
Thank you. If something is classed as immoral, such as sexual or physical abuse, is it deemed wrong in true spirituality? Second part to that, would this be relatively wrong to the victim or an absolute or objective wrong?
Well, firstly, from the mind's point of view, the human perspective, they have laws and current philosophies that they follow, which has not always been the case. If you go back 200 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, the laws are constantly changing. So what is today's moral rights and wrongs, tomorrow is going to be very different. So if somebody subscribes to that, then that's their belief system. What can you do? But from a spiritual point of view, from a truth point of view, you have to understand that nothing happens in this creation without karma. That means all interactions between people, whether so-called good or bad, happens because of karmic dealings. Now, if you want to know the truth of that encounter, why not go back to the Akashic records and see how these two's relationships developed? Then it will make perfect sense what you're witnessing now. And you will have no judgment. Judgment is based on ignorance. Yeah? One who is enlightened, he knows that there's this karmic merry-go-round going on. He does not get involved. He stays clear, he observes it, he accepts it that this is karma. He doesn't condone it, he doesn't praise it, but neither does he condemn whatever he sees. He simply says it is what it is. Between these two individuals, they must settle their account. In fact, Babaji recently had to endure this little difficulty in the Dera because somebody quite close to him, a lady, protested most strongly about some inappropriateness happening in the Dera between a male senior key Sevadar and some women there, and that was what we would call sexual and physical abuse. And it was reported Babaji, and when Babaji was asked for his opinion about it, in a private meeting, in a spiritual point of view, he said this is just their karma. He says, let it be. It will resolve itself by itself. When the karma ends, it finishes. He said, concentrate on your own behavior, on your own thing. Obviously, this particular lady took offense to that. And because she was emotionally developed, she's not spiritually aware, and she made a big hoo-ha, created a big fuss, and even wrote a book about it, about the problems in the Dera, the unseen, behind-the-scenes things, because she was right high up, It didn't affect at all the mechanisms of the running of the Dera, because Babaji kept quiet. He spoke the truth and left it to the Lord to decide how this truth manifests. He just let it be. Because he did not lie. But then he's got these two camps now. Those who say, no, Babaji should have defended those women. He should have punished, judged and punished, or thrown out those people from the Dera. He did nothing of the sort. He didn't even criticize them. Forget about punishing them. See, but the key Sevadas, and these are people who live under Babaji's, aura constantly. Still, they were not evolved. And many of them, the enlightened ones understood. The ones who are true seekers kept quiet. They didn't get involved. Remember, mind, keep your nose clean, keep out of the karmic business, remember? But those ones who thought that they have to intervene made a big fuss about it. I mean, it's kind of largely blown over now, but at its time, a few years back, it was a big deal in the Dera. And there's lots of debates and talks about it. People were even questioning whether Master was a genuine Master. Is he real? How can he allow such atrocities? They really built it up to this murdering almost scene. Right? And Babaji's remained silent. He said his bit, and the spiritual truth must carry on, even if the mindfulness people or the people of the lower orders vilify the saints. After all, Jesus was crucified for speaking the truth, wasn't he? Right? What did he ever do? And tell the truth and try to help people. And they crucified him. Guru Arjan Dev was boiled in oil and sat on hot plates, and all kinds of things happened to him. Buddha was poisoned simply for speaking the truth. So, Babaji's on dangerous ground. But in this modern day and age, no master will be killed because they speak the truth. That is the law. So Babaji says his bit and keeps quiet. This is an example of what spiritual truth is compared to mindfulness. Mindfulness is forever changing. Because remember, as you go around the circle of mindfulness, the characteristics constantly change. Spiritual never changes. Truth is truth. It never changes. It doesn't matter what the mind feels. Tomorrow, who knows what laws are? They could say all people who wear ponytails are devils and they should be executed. Well, the people living at that time, what are they going to do? In the past, a woman who practiced herbal medicine was classed as a witch and burnt at the stake. Now, we have herbalists who treat and cure people, and they're not burnt at the stake.
Living proof.
Yeah. So, how times change. So what is right and what is wrong? Yeah. The truth is that it's an evolving situation. And those ones who are on the spiritual path or claim to be should actually seek the truth of any matter. And if they reach the absolute truth, when they seek the absolute truth, they'll realize there's no case to answer. Right? And they should leave it be. It's not it's between them two. They should not get involved in the karmic business between two other individuals. You should never do that. Nowhere in any spiritual scripture it says get involved in other people's business, in their karma. Because then you suffer with them. You have created harm, a consequence by taking sides, and therefore you must pay the price. What goes around comes around. Then you hang with them. There's actually quite a famous story, and this is actually a true story in America, where that the Wild West was quite a rough place to live, and there was a lot of killings and raidings and so on. So this homesteader was just living, quite happily. This family was living quite happily in the West, and they were raided by this party of men, and there was a father, a mother, and 2 children. So they came there and they robbed them and they killed the mother. No, they raped the mother, killed her, and killed the father. And one of the sons who was old enough to pick up a gun, tried to defend, and they shot him. So one son remained, and because he was hiding. And eventually the sheriff came, and it was a great tragedy report in the local community. These bandits have to be stopped and whatever. So the sheriff came and eventually found the 2 men involved. And the boy, they questioned the boy, what did you see? So he was a testimony. So he said what he saw. And they were to be hanged. The tradition there was build a gallows, hang them high. That was the method, right? So the gallows were built. There they were, the platform there. They were, as tradition, they read the Bible to them to spare their souls, in the judgment game and so on. And this boy, I think he was about 12 years old, he was standing there looking at these men filled with anger and hate. And then he did a really strange thing. Instead of letting the business be between the Lord and these individuals, he stepped in. Whilst they were reading the Bible, he ran up the stairs with a knife and stabbed the 2 men in the hand. Yeah, he stabbed them. What do you think happened to him? The town lynched him and he hanged next to them. He met the same fate as them. What for? It's a tragedy, but it's a true story. And that's how we are. But because we don't hang immediately, we think we're going to be okay. If we intervene and cause harm, we think, we've done something good. Like if he'd got away with it for a while, let's say he ran faster than they could catch him, he would think, I've done a good deed. I've taken my revenge. Revenge is a really popular thing. Revenge, right? And but they don't understand there's a consequence, a really serious consequence that you have to meet. If not now, then later. And it's going to come and bite you up the ass, and you're going to get done for it. So why get involved in this? So a truly spiritually aware person understands the law of karma, and they say, hey, I'm staying out of this one. I don't want to be hanged with them. So you stay out of harm's way. Right? That is the most fundamental thing. Keep yourself out of harm's way. Don't interfere in other people's business unless you're compelled to do so. Let's say you're a police officer and you're in the middle of a crime scene and you have to apprehend the criminals. You do so, again with compassion and kindness, because they don't know what they're doing, but you still do your job. You take them to the station to be questioned and then hand them over. You do so in such a manner because it is your duty and you have to pay the karma for that. Yes, you are causing harm, but you are not intentionally, you're doing harm as part of your responsibility and duty, not intentionally, unless you enjoy it. Let's say you enjoy the power of the badge and you go there and you grab them and you enjoy it. Yes, got you son of a gun, you scum of the earth. Then there's a problem.
Yeah.
You see, intention is the big thing behind whatever you do in life. If you have an inherently good nature and you don't like to harm anyone or take part in this harming game, whether it apparently looks good or not in the eyes of others, right, you stay well clear. Yeah? And the wise ones, like the saints and the enlightened ones, stay well clear of harm's way because they know they will only lose in the end. They might have their sweet victory for a little while. In the end, they will be the losers and they will have to pay this back.
Thank you. Next question, still on morality. Should we never condone or accept an action or behaviour if it has negative consequences and harms someone with intention?
We should never condone an action that causes harm. Absolutely so. Condoning means that you celebrate it and you say it's okay. Acceptance is different. Acceptance means that you see what is happening before you and accept it as part of the course of nature of these individuals. Acceptance does not mean you condone it. So this has been used incorrectly. There are two separate meanings. So for example, masters never say go out there and do harm. Yeah, we you do it, they condone it. So gladly, that's fine. They'll all say to you, look, try not to do this because there's a consequence. They always act from compassion and kindness and love. So even when you make a mistake, if you go to the master and say, please master, I did all these manners of mistakes, please forgive me, he's okay, I forgive you. But don't do it again, he says. Yeah? Because, it's going to cause you harm. And I might not be there to forgive you next time. In fact, there was a very famous case during the time of Great Master, which Ishwarji used to tell this story, of this particular man who was initiated by Great Master. But, he was a character. And he once came running into Master's room. Master used to sit and have, with his committee members, they used to talk about the matters of the day in the office. But the door was always open, really. It was never closed. So he stormed in, past the Sevadar's guarded door, even before the Sevadar could stop him. And he fell to his knees and said, Master, please forgive me. He said, last night I did everything wrong. He said, you told me not to womanize, I womanized. I was drunk and I ate meat and I did everything wrong. Please forgive me, I'm sorry today. Master said, okay, you're forgiven. And he said, thank you, and he went out. And the committee members looked at him, but they didn't say anything that day. The next day, he came in with the same story. He barged in again he did the same crime. And he said, Master, please forgive me. Master said, okay, I forgive you. And he was so grateful and ran out. Then they looked at him and they were talking among themselves, but they dare not question Babaji's, his words. Mm-hmm. The third time, though, about a week later, the man came in again. And this time it was a week gap, not day, So obviously he was improving, right, from the master's point of view. So he came in, and again he said, Master, I've broken all these rules. Master said, okay, I forgive you. Now the committee could not take it any further. They had enough. They said, Master, how can you forgive this man? He keeps doing the same thing. And he comes to you. And Great Master said, it's just a karma. He has karma with them. How can I not forgive? Plus, he says, I'm not a punisher. I'm only a forgiver. Don't put me among the punishers. There are many others who do that, including you. In your mind, you have already punished him and condemned him. Don't put me among the punishers. He says, masters only forgive. Because they know the story between those two individuals. He said, you do not know the story. The mere fact that he has come to me in recognition that I'm capable of forgiving overrides everything. Because he's come to me recognizing I have the power to forgive. The connection with the divinity is there within him, even if his karmic body is misbehaving. He says, so I forgive him. And they remain quiet after that. But there's several other examples, but that's one that Ishwarji famously spoke about. So yeah, from a spiritual point of view, the way of looking at things is very different. The basic rule is keep your nose clean, wear blinkers, don't look around you, get on with your own stuff. Make sure you do no harm, right? Make sure you help. Do no harm doesn't mean don't help somebody. But if that help results in harm, then you shouldn't do it. Find another way. Right? There's always another way, a better way. Your job as the watching yourself carefully, if you spend as much time watching yourself as you do watching others, you will do very well.
Thank you. I think you've answered this question. Do initiates of a perfect living master, such as Babaji or Ishwarji, expect them to stand up for apparent moral injustices if asked about it?
Yes, I have answered that. And, they will give that two-pronged approach. From the human world point of view, do what you think is right, what you think is best. But be aware of the consequences. From the spiritual point of view, it is just karma.
Yeah. Okay, the last question around morality. Is it true that our level of consciousness or comprehension determines our true morality?
Absolutely, because what you call morality or knowledge is a growing awareness. As you raise your consciousness level to the point of the Lord, your view of morality is completely different, because the Lord is the one who's created the script. Therefore, there's no reality to anything that's going on, even if they're killing each other, right? But when you're at the level of the participant looking up, and you see this killing is going on, this raping is going on, this all these difficulties are going on, wars are going on, then you say, oh, this is not right, that must be wrong, oh, no, right? You say all these things, you get all emotionally het up and involved. To what end? Does it ever stop? Has anybody who complained about a war, about it, ever stopped it happening? No. What good is there in this? If it cannot make any difference, what good is there in it? It still goes on. So the saints say, don't get involved in these things. Just make sure you don't do it.
True.
Make sure you watch yourself, and make sure you don't get involved in all of this nonsense. This is all illusion. It's Maya. It's a sport of the divine. In fact, nobody's killing each other, because you cannot kill a soul. Yeah, you cannot even kill a mind. So if a person's stabbed or killed or harmed in some way, what of it? It's just a body. It's a body exchanged with another body of karma. But suffering is a great teacher, in fact. Therefore, don't rob other people of suffering, because that suffering leads them to question the meaning of life. If they never suffered at the hands of anybody, whoever it may be, then, or criticized, then they would never evolve. So how do you know it's not for their own good? Because you don't understand the bigger picture. So it's not just random suffering. Suffering is not given randomly. There's a meaning behind it, but very few are in a position to really understand what is the meaning of this suffering. Why has it been given to me? It's there, both, yes, it is karmic, but karma itself is not a mindless activity. In fact, it's very well orchestrated. It's designed to give some message to both the perpetrator and the so-called victim. If they have the capacity to understand the significance of this activity and this connection between these two, then they have gained a great deal, then that suffering was well worthwhile. An example I'll give from the time of the Gurus, it's a story, it's a saki, from the time of the in India, spiritual India. There was a great king. There's always a king involved in this, because it sounds better than saying an ordinary individual. There was a great king in India. No name was given to this king. He was creating a banquet. You know, he wanted to celebrate his birthday or some event, and he wanted a great banquet. But he'd been drinking a lot the night before, and he was quite tired. So he was sitting in his chamber, and he thought to himself, I'd like to have a really good feast here, involving the killing of animals. So he was just thinking about this, and then there was this one goat, because in those days the palace, the windows weren't very double glazed or sealed, and he could hear in the pen yard where the animals were, this goat bleating and making so much noise, and he got fed up. So he decided now what he was going to show to the people of how great his kingness is, how kingly he is and how powerful he is. So he pulled a bell, summoned his servant, and say, that goat that's making a noise, I want to serve that goat's balls on a plate in the dinner table, among all the other things, because I'm the king, and that goat is daring to disturb my peace. So this man, who was a little bit religious, he was actually a pious man himself. He was quite, as most people were in those days. He used to follow Krishna. He was quite devotee of Lord Krishna and so on. So he believed in ahimsa, non-violence, right? But nevertheless, the king's order was to go and cut the balls of this goat. So he went down to the area, to the pen, located the goat, and as the story goes, because of his spiritual practice, you could telepathically communicate with the goat. So he managed to pin the goat down with the help of another individual. And he got his knife out. And the goat turned its head and spoke to him in telepathic. He said, you know, my friend, in every life, you kill me, I kill you, you kill me, I kill you. But this is the first time you're cutting my balls off. Right? And then the man realized the karmic implications and dropped the knife and ran for his life. Yeah, because he realized what's going to happen to him. Yeah, and this is how karma works. Yeah, so, you know, once we understand the workings of this, then we just keep our nose clean, you know, we just keep the straight and narrow path, do the best we can. And if unintentionally we cause harm, then we beg forgiveness. Even if it's unintentional, we still seek forgiveness of the Lord. Please help me. Be more vigilant. We spend our time being more vigilant to not cause harm. And if we spend all our time doing that, what time have we got to looking around what everybody else is doing? Because everybody else should be doing the same. You know? So yeah, it's that's the law of karma in a nutshell.
Thank you. I've got a few questions related to the family.
Okay.
First question. What type of human relationship has the least amount of conditions attached to it? Parents, partners, siblings, or friends?
I don't think it's based upon the relationship. I think it's based upon the two individuals' connection with each other. I mean, you can have a mother who's so obsessed by their son that they'll do anything for them, to the point of excluding their own husband or their daughter, which happens a lot in certain societies. Then you can have, you know, siblings. You know, you can have an obsessive connection with siblings of hate or love. You know, you can love your brother and sister or hate them. Yeah, so there's an obsession there. Friends, the same. You know, you have one friend you prefer over another. So we're constantly creating different relationships with these individuals, some more obsessive than others. And it's got nothing to do with the individual relationship, whether they're a sibling, whether they're a parent, whether they're a friend or a partner. The obsessiveness can be there or not there in all of these cases.
Thank you. Is it okay for a satsangi to still be the head of their family and its provider if all the other family members are non-vegetarian or meat eaters? Second part, is there any karma incurred when taking care of such a family by giving money to buy meat and non-vegetarian food?
You see, karma places you in a situation. The karma who's placed you in that sort of family setup means that you have lena dena, a give and take with that family. Now, whilst you yourself, remember the golden rule, do no harm. In other words, you do not eat the meat, you do not involve in the killing, you do not enter directly, but you have a duty and responsibility dictated by karma. So, if you hand them over the money and you say to them, go and do the shopping, but in your heart, you are not in favor of them buying meat and everything, and you say to them, but hopefully one day you will not use this to buy meat, but as the head of the household, I have to give you the money to go and buy and cook this food. It's not harm. It's okay. You don't judge. Remember, if you stick to the rules, non-judgment, do no harm, you'll always be safe. When you use the magic formula in everything you do, everything makes sense of how you should go about it.
I've got a second question, and I'm guessing it's going to be the same answer.
Yes.
Does the satsangi mother or father incur any karma for cooking food with meat for his or her children, husband or wife, or donates money to a person in need and that person buys non-vegetarian food?
Of course there's karma involved in a strict sense, but they've been put in that position. However, if they're a satsangi and they appeal to the master for forgiveness, because remember, they don't intentionally want to harm. Yeah, the intention is not there. That's the important point. So, if they have to do their family duty, they have to fulfill their duty, their karmic obligation, no matter what. Yeah, they have to fulfill this. But the attitude that they have is totally different. So, if they have the right attitude, master will forgive them. Yes, there is a small price to pay, which means because they've been put in that karmic position, means they have to have this particular association with these people, and there's something have to be paid back, the difficulty. In fact, their own upsetness of the mind is enough to pay back that karma. Because we think that that suffering has to be perpetrated by another upon you. No, you can carry that guilt, you can carry that misery within you, which itself is paying back the karma to you. It doesn't have to be somebody else slapping you in the face.
True. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions around chastity. First question. In a talk by Master Kirpal on Ojas, the power of chastity, he stated that Ojas is the power which helps you rise into the beyond. What is this power of Ojas?
Okay, Ojas is a Sanskrit term, originally a Sanskrit term, that can be translated as vigor, or the essence of vitality, similar to prana, or life force in Ayurvedic medicine. So Ojas is this vital essence that is supposed to sustain the body and keep the body active and alive, technically. So in a nutshell, Ojas is the vital energy that rules our immunity, vitality, and even happiness. In Ayurveda, the three things which we want to have in abundance, according to Ayurvedic practitioners. So the best way to replenish your Ojas energy naturally is by consuming Ojas increasing foods, meaning sattvic foods. To answer that question, what helps them. Now, also exercising every day and meditating regularly while preserving the vital fluids like blood and semen is the way forward for these yogic practitioners who get involved in this preserving the Ojas, this vital element. And yes, that's true. It is absolutely true. It's not necessary for spiritual involvement, but for maintaining the body and to a certain extent the mind, the brain, yes, it's a good idea. So doing so will keep the brain, digestive system, metabolism in proper working order. So if done properly, the practitioner can raise their mental focus to higher things like spiritual practice and then manage to attend to it. So that's what Kirpal Singh was trying to get at, that if you use this system of try to, observe this Ojas principle of preserving it, then that frees the mind a little bit, because you're more in a calm, more fit state. You're not troubled by aches and pains, disease, illness, and troubles of the mind, and therefore you can focus your mind on spirituality. He didn't mention it as a replacement for spiritual practice. He simply said that this was a great help.
Thank you. Okay, the next question on chastity is a couple of questions within this. It is often stated that chastity is life, sexuality is death. Yet saints say that marriage is no bar to spirituality. Can you explain this? Also, for men specifically, does the loss of what is called vital fluid, example semen, make one lose focus, attention and concentration in meditation or spiritual practice, and thus impairs one from going within? How important is preserving this vital fluid for men in spirituality?
Okay, this is again coming from the religious perspective mainly. Saints don't so much concern themselves with this, but it is a recognized element. Let's take the first part of the question. Chastity is life, sexuality is death, and very dramatic statement. And but yet saints allow marriage, themselves are married, and they have intimate encounters with their wife or partner. You see, if your focus is on the mind and the mind game and mindfulness, and that is your level of attainment, then trying to purify the mind is everything to you. Although you can never be successful, it's just not possible because the mind is imperfect by nature. It can never be perfect. Nevertheless, if you believe that you can purify the mind or control the mind, then you get involved in these things. The saints, however, because they talk about the soul as being the true entity, not the mind, and the soul is out of the karmic realm completely, therefore there's no involvement of body and mind at the level of the soul. They say that from a purely spiritual point of view, it's okay to be married, live a full household alive, have children, do all these things, go to work, do everything, and you can still go to your true home. Because their method is quite different. The home that they encourage us to aspire to is completely out of the karmic realms. Therefore, the karma does not get involved. None of the doings here has anything to do with our spiritual progress. And that's absolutely the truth. This is a personal relationship between the soul and the super soul that is generated by the super soul, and it gradually pulls us. Now, in the process of doing so, especially in the beginning, of course the mind is involved, because as you're evolving, as we said, you're going through the mind realms first to cross over to the spiritual realms. To make this journey as pleasant as possible, apart from doing no harm and not causing problems, if you minimize the obsessions of the senses generally, whether it's food, I mean they talk about sexuality, but like craving foods or craving certain sensory pleasures, all of them are equally bad. You know, to single out sexuality because that's the most difficult one to avoid, so they make that as the big no-no, but actually they're all bad. Yeah, all the indulgences are bad. If you can move away from these indulgences, then this is going to make your journey a lot more pleasant, a lot easier, and a lot smoother. So that is why the saints say, yeah, sure, live your married life, fulfill your karmic obligations and responsibilities, but do so in a detached way. And how are you able to do that? Because you attach yourself to something better. The concept of attaching yourself through meditation to the master and having the master as the figurehead means that you automatically detach from the lower things. It's not a question of you forcing yourself to detach. If you try to do that, you'll never succeed. In fact, you'll become mentally deranged. So the only way you can detach from the lower things is to attach yourself to something higher. And that's why the spiritual path is introduced, to allow us to attach ourselves to something better, so we naturally give up these things. And an example would be, let's say you have a child, 10-year-old child, playing with his toy car. And you want to snatch the car away from him because it's time to eat or something. And he's crying and screaming, no, don't take this car away from me, it's mine. It's only a toy, but he's so obsessed with it. Then on his 18th birthday, as a surprise, you give him the keys to a real car. He himself throws the toy away and goes for the real deal. And that's exactly what happens, and that's how spirituality works. We will only throw away the lower things when we have something higher.
Thank you. I've got some questions about karma now.
Okay.
In what capacity should I help people with certain negative issues in society? For instance, people with anger, lust, greed, or who eat meat. If I am serious about leaving the karmic cycle and obtaining enlightenment.
Again, why do they feel they need to help these people? If again, this is interfering in somebody else's life and their own fate and their destiny. If that person comes to them and say, look here, I notice you have a peaceful way about you. You seem to be coping better with all things, what is your secret? If they ask you for help, they see that you're living this noble way of life and they want some of that, then you advise them, say, look, this is what I do. It works for me. You don't tell them they must do this. You simply say, look, this is what it do and it works for me. If that appeals to you, I can teach you or explain to you more about this. That is the better approach, rather than becoming a preacher, going out there trying to put the world to right, thinking that, I must help these individuals, these poor sods who eat meat, are immoral, and all these other things. No. They're fulfilling their karmic obligation. Yeah? They're doing their own thing. It's not for you to get involved. You watch yourself. Keep yourself steadfast on the path and make sure you do no harm. Do not judge or anything like that. Then, if somebody comes to you and say, please help me, if they ask for help, then you certainly help them. Then you have a duty to help them because the karma has brought you two together. Remember, nothing happens by chance, by accident. Everything has been scripted down to the smallest detail. Yeah? So, if somebody comes before you asking for help, they could be a villain, a murderer, or they could be a saint. Your job is to help them, not judge what they do. That's not your case. You will be judged by your own merit, what you have done, not what the other person has done. Remember this. They have their own account with the Lord that they have to meet. It's not for you to take over the Lord's judgment, because if you do that, you'll hang with them. Judgment is the most dangerous game in this world, especially for spiritual practitioners, because it leads to hell. See, heaven and hell is ruled by judgment. And if one judges, even spirituality, they may have to go to hell. You must be very, very careful when entering this judgment game. So don't look upon others who eat meat or live a certain way of life as lower than you, lesser than you. No. You can feel compassion for them, sorry for them, because they don't know what they're doing. They don't realize that what they're doing is going to end in harm to them. But don't judge them. Compassion, kindness, understanding, tolerance, that's a better way. Like I say, always find another way. Whatever you're doing, there's always a better way of doing it.
True. Okay, still with karma. Can an enlightened person still make mistakes with regards to their character because of their karmic role?
Yeah, it depends on the level of enlightenment and what their role is. And then who decides whether to make a mistake or not. If they have a karmic connection and they have to fulfill that, how can that be wrong? There's no such thing as right and wrong. So first you have to eliminate this. But an activity can look not so holy as another activity from the point of view of the human being, yes. But again, you don't judge, because nothing happens outside the law of karma. You have to understand, hukam, hukam, hukam. Divine command rules everything that happens here. Therefore, who is not innocent? There are only innocent parties all around. Everyone is innocent because they don't know any better and they're led by their karma. No one can act outside of karma here. You cannot even take a breath without karma, let alone do an activity with somebody. So, if you see the karma unfolding, you say, what an amazing creation. You see the wonder of it. Because you see, on one hand, somebody being saved by another benevolent individual, and the other one, you see a mass killer killing a whole nation. You say, what a wonder is this creation I'm looking at. As a spectator, I'm looking at this show going on before me, knowing there's no reality to it, but you look at it and say, what a wonder that the two things can exist in the same world.
You wouldn't say that openly, though. You'd say it to yourself.
No, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm explaining to you how an enlightened one would take this point of view. They'll see the wonder in what's going on. Because they see the marvel that these two existences, hell and heaven, can exist in the same place. It's a very strange... This physical world is unique in that sense. There's no other realm like it. You know, where both heaven and hell exist and you can choose sides.
Hence why we're here for an experience.
Yeah, we're here for an experience, and both, some of it's hellish and some of it's pleasant. Yeah?
Okay.
But we must rise above it, because neither karma cannot save us. Get the hell out of the karmic. Like Jesus said, I have come to pluck brands from the burning. He said, never came to put the fire out. What that means is people who are burning and suffering in their karmic roles. He said, I've come to get you out of it, not to extinguish the fire. And he even said further, I've come to uphold the law, not to stop the law. What law is he talking about? The law of karma. So saints don't come to change the workings of creation, because that's already perfect. It's already evolving according to the divine plan. And they know the divine plan. No matter how much the individual may protest, the divine plan must go on. However, they say, when your time comes, let's get out, come with me, let's go home. Had enough of this play, let's go home. And that's the role of the saints.
Thank you. If we are to have a full, direct inner knowing that everything in this world is karma and thus illusion, should we really get upset or depressed when we see hurtful things happening to animals, as an example?
Not really, we shouldn't be, but if, for example, we're in a position to help, and that help does not lead to harm, then we should help. So, for example, if you see an animal trapped in a hole as you're going past, you shouldn't ignore that. You should intervene and help, because it came to your attention. Karmically, you're observing this, you should help. Similarly, in other ways you can help. Like, for example, rather than vilifying meat eaters, promote veganism, the benefits and health of it, but don't condemn the meat eater. See, there's always a better way to do something. You still achieve your end, but in a better way, right? So you can intervene. So if you have a certain philosophy, like giving health advice and teaching, you give a better way. But if they say, no, I'm not ready for that, you say, okay, go on your way. Fair play to you, good luck. You know, but if somebody says, please help me, I want to know a better way of living for my health and well-being, then you help them, because you two have come into contact and they've asked you for your help. So similarly, in everyday things that you see around you, sometimes you're in a position to help. Perhaps most times you're not. Like if you see some war going on in the news, you can feel sorry for the whole people because of their ignorance. They don't know that they're killing each other. They don't know the karmic consequences of what they're doing to each other. But you don't judge. Yeah, but you still feel compassion because they have apparent suffering, because they don't know the truth. Right? And in ignorance they're suffering. So that compassion in you comes forward, but not judgment. It's a very important point. Yes?
Why do people judge so much?
It's because they're living in the mind. The nature of the mind is to live in a dual world. That means everything is run on duality. The moment you live in the world of time and space, you have a separation between cause and effect. Now, not only that, to make this drama work in creation, you have to have opposites, pairs of opposites. The entire creation is made up of pairs of opposites. So, for example, we have beauty can only be admired because ugliness exists. Yeah, day can only be appreciated because night exists. Yeah, warmth can only be appreciated because cold exists. Everything has duality, and even a mother would only love the child because death exists. So all these opposites, pairs of opposites, control the way the creation is run. If we get involved in this play, then when the part calls for us to cry, we start crying for real. When the part calls for us to laugh, we actually start laughing. But there's no reality to either thing that's going on. But you interact with it and make it real for yourself. So your sense of reality depends upon your comprehension level. So that's why people judge. Because if it's in their nature to judge, they have that level of mind, they will happily do so without a qualm, because they do not understand the bigger picture. And the nature of the mind is to get involved in opposites. Therefore, there has to be good and bad. That's the biggest one. And therefore, if there's such a good as bad, we have allocated good as something good, as nice, so we've called it good, and bad means it must be wrong. So when we see something bad going on, we say that's wrong, and we cast judgment. But from the Lord's point of view, nothing of that exists. It's just karma. It's just two people interacting in whatever way. You have put the label of right and wrong because you're emotionally involved. Now, as you raise intellectually, like the philosophers attempted to resolve this problem. Through their intellectual philosophy, they had some measure of understanding. Although they didn't genuinely feel it so, because they weren't spiritually aware, they realized that this thing in morality, this debate of morality of good and bad, was something of a grey area. Because they saw how morality changes over time. What was accepted 2,000 years ago is not accepted now. Right? And it's forever changing. So what is the truth about this? Maybe there is a higher truth to all of this. You know, maybe this is just the way it is. And they call this way it is the law of nature. Right? So the law of nature is prevailing. Now, should we as intelligent human beings intervene? That was a big question. Should we intervene in this law? And various answers came back, in which they said, okay, if it directly affects us and our family, then maybe we should intervene. If it doesn't, maybe we should leave it. Then another philosopher, moralist, say, no, we should intervene wherever we hear of such things and throw ourselves into the melting pot of all this kind of, no matter what the consequence, even if it results in death, at least we'll die a hero's death. Yeah, that was the philosophy. But imagine these debaters, these philosophers were really talking about these things in a really serious way. But then, of course, in spirituality, then we have the lower spiritualities things, the religions, who had this moral code. So, for example, if you break the moral code, you have to be punished. They were still judging, but they decided a different set of rules for right and wrong. And then in the high spiritual sense, pure spiritual sense, the spirituality of the soul, there's no judgment. Judgment is finished. There's just observation. And they say, wow, this is interesting. Like, actually, there's a good example that we see all the time. Even so we may think that we're so morally perfect, in the human sense. When we watch an animal, like a lion, killing a deer, do we really feel heartfelt for that deer? Or do we say, wow, look at the way it killed it and the way he did it. Wow, it's an amazing thing. He's the predator, you know. And then men would like to think, I'm the predator, that's the prey. They're actually championing. Instead of thinking the poor deer. So they've got double standards when it comes to morality. So morality is not set. Spiritual truth is, but morality depends on the observer. Yeah? On one hand, you say this is morally okay. On the other hand, it says, no, you shouldn't harm. So if somebody kicked their cat or attacked their cat, they'll be taking them to the court. When they see a lion killing a deer, they have no qualm about that. Where's their morality there? Double standards. So morality is really a bit of a joke, actually, in modern societies. Because without philosophy behind it, what is your morality based on? It's based on your emotions, what you feel, what you like. For example, you say, I don't want to kill an animal in a factory farm, but yet you happily set a trap to kill the mice in your home. What kind of morality is that? You're deciding the fate of one animal to another because one is cute and cuddly maybe and the other one isn't, in your eyes. So this question of morality is a big problem. And I've never found a true moral person yet, even in the human form. Somebody who actually observes morality from a purely karmic point of view. Even that's not possible to do. Because they cannot be perfect in this imperfect world. They will always show their failings somewhere.
Thank you. Right, I've got one last question relating to karma, and it's directed at yourself.
Okay.
Have you ever asked the Lord to go through your karma faster so you can make quicker progress?
I haven't actually asked directly for that, but in my seeking journey, becoming absolutely frustrated and disillusioned with the world I was seeing around me, I did ask to show me the truth no matter what the cost. And sure enough, that has been fulfilled. And I would say that that's not an easy road. So if you're saying, yes, what is the price for realization? I would say be careful what you ask for, because you have to be ready for that. If you make a bold statement like that, you have to be ready to face that.
Were you glad you asked though?
Oh yes, I think the price is well worth it.
Okay.
Because even if the master was to kill me himself or to vilify me, I would still love him. The bond of love is unconditional. Even if master outcasts me, and himself stabs me and vilifies me, doesn't matter. Because there's no reality to anything that's going on here. The real master is Shabad, the truth. So the karmic connection I might have with that individual is for the world to see. But the bond of truth and love is way beyond that. Yeah, that truth is between soul and super soul. And that cannot be killed, destroyed, or obstructed in any way. So the truth is that when you have built that relationship between the soul and the super soul, no amount of karma goes in the way of that, no matter what happens to you. However, if you are then to help others, then you need to be in a position to help. And you can't do that if you're dead, harmed, or in some way, with some difficulty, diseased and so on, then it becomes very difficult. If you said, here's the seva, do this seva, but at the same time we're going to harm you to a point where you can't do the seva. So yeah, this is the paradox. But not that a spiritual person says, I want an easy life. Not that a spiritual person says, I want it to be all roses. Because actually what they want is out. Because there's no such thing as roses. How long will the roses last? Even a rose, it blossoms for a while, it gives you its fragrance, and a week later it's gone. What was that all about? But imagine if you could have the fragrance of that rose forever. Wouldn't you choose the option of that forever? So it just so happens that the Master planted within me the option to seek the foreverness, eternal life. So I took that on board. And I don't take no credit. If I had done anything, it was to seek the truth no matter what the cost, to make that statement. But I would say that's not for everybody. Some people want to go very slowly over several lifetimes, make it easier for them. Perhaps I was stupid in my statement. But I, at this stage, with what has been gifted to me, I don't feel anything. In fact, I think I bought it very cheaply. What I have gained cannot be measured in any human terms. In fact, there's no words to describe it. That bond of love between that devotee and the Lord itself is beyond any description. It has to be experienced to be understood. Then my words would make sense. When I say that even if the Master himself condemned me publicly, I would be happy.
How did you get that love? Because I know you speak about
It's
it.
given. It's a given.
Okay.
How can I get it? From where? There's no magic cave somewhere. You go dig a hole and you pick it up.
You know what I mean? How did that concept just come?
It's all grace. It's all the grace of the Lord. The Lord gave me the means to ask for it, and the Lord gave it as a reward.
So when you got it, was it something that just overwhelmed you and
Yes.
you didn't realise I could be this way or have this feeling or whatever?
Not so much that, but I was definitely overwhelmed. In the sense that not questioning why me, was a lot of people say, oh, but why were you selected? That actually doesn't come to you. Because when you're overwhelmed by this connection and you see the truth, you recognize this as right. And therefore you are wholly immersed in it. There's no room for thinking. The mind is not involved in this at all. So it's not sitting there questioning this. The mind afterwards will try to make sense. But how can you love? The mind will challenge you and say, how can you love this one if they're going to harm you? Let's say. You say, mind, keep quiet, you don't understand. Yeah. So yeah, it's a.
That's got to be rare.
The
though.
spiritual game is a very different game, and true lovers of the truth and the Lord, only when they have actually experienced this do they understand it. This is not some. I can tell you all these things, but you can walk away from this room, and it won't change anything in you because it's not your experience. It's a concept. But when you experience it, then you'll come dancing with me in the street. In fact, there's a very famous story with Bulleh Shah I often quote about. Bulleh Shah, a great saint. I liked him because he was naughty and mischievous, and he really demonstrated this connection with the Lord, his master. Shah Ilyat was his master. And there's a long story behind this point, but I'm going to get straight to the point for the sake of brevity. But his master initially rejected him. In a sense because he denied his master at a meeting. And because he denied following that master, because he was part of a Muslim community and they had very strict rules about what is allowed and what isn't allowed in Islam, and whatever is haram, you could be killed for it. So in fear of his life, because he didn't do no matter what the cost, in fear of his life, he wasn't prepared to die for it yet. In fear of his life, he denounced his master, at this public meeting. And then his master withdrew the grace, stopped the darshan inside, everything for quite some time, quite a few years in fact. So Bulleh Shah was in this wilderness of misery because he had lost his master's darshan. He didn't know what to do with himself. He knew that this was everything to him. It was the only thing that fulfilled him and satisfied him. The world just seemed dull and ungracious to him without this. So he moped around for ages. And then at certain point, when he was in such a state, he felt the magic third. No matter what the cost, I want to have your darshan. He said it. And the moment that happened, the darshan was given to him. And thereafter, he was in such ecstasy that he would dance, he would wear women's clothes, and wear these jingle bangles and anklets and everything, and go dancing down the street shamelessly. This is very shameful for a Muslim to do this, to dress as a woman, wearing these women's clothes, singing as well, praises of the Lord, right? Non-Islamic hymns, by the way, just praises, and going down to the well and get the water and bring it back to his father. And the whole, because it's a Muslim community, and the family were quite respected in the community, the whole village was shocked. What has become of Bullhe Shah? We knew he was dowdy and miserable before, but now he's gone crazy. He's become possessed. He's mad, right? And his father needs to do something about it. Yeah. Again, intervening, this social interference, right? So, but Bullhe Shah didn't mind. As he was walking down, they would throw things at him. The women would throw the cut peels, everything onto his head. They'd throw all kinds of things as he's walking up and down. He'd simply bathe then in the water, where he's collecting the water from, come back with the pail full of water for his father, for the family, because that was his duty to collect the water early in the morning, and go back still singing shamelessly, and they'd be shouting at him and cursing him and so on. And yet that went on for a while. Eventually, the leaders of the community said to his father, "You've got to stop this. It's shameful. We are a Muslim community. He's creating shame. What are our children going to think? What are people going to think?" So the father decided he had to take action. Right? He was already very embarrassed about his shameful son. And he tried to turn a blind eye, but no, he said, if you don't do something, they said, we will. So on one of the particular journeys, when Bullhe Shah was coming back with a pail of water, the father and a little entourage met him at the end of the road near the house with a big whip in his hand. And he said to his son, "Are you going to stop this madness? Or shall I beat it out of you with this whip to the very inch of your life in front of all this crowd?" And Bullhe Shah started going around in circles, like dancing in circles, right? Carrying on with what he was doing shamelessly. He put the pot down. He didn't say anything, so Bullhe Shah didn't say anything. Then, as he was spinning around, the father saw in him the innocence of childhood when he was a child, and how he used to spin the dervishes, because there was a tradition there that the dervishes was a certain sect in Islam, and they used to rotate around and spinning the head round and he remembers him as a little boy doing that, and how cute it was and how wonderful it was. And he had two minds. On one hand, he had to whip his son in front of the public, otherwise he would lose all his status in the community, everything. On the other hand, this was his little boy. So Bullhe Shah saw the compassion in him for the moment. He saw in him that glint in his eye that he was unsure. And that little moment of compassion saved his father. Because then Bullhe Shah stopped for a moment and gazed at his father's eye and transmitted all that he knew to his father at that instant, spiritual transmission. Then his father, once seeing the full truth, dropped the whip and joined his son dancing in ecstasy shamelessly in the street. It's a beautiful story, a true story. And this is the way of truth. This is what spirituality is all about. And how somebody can be saved. Even his father. What did his father do? But because he had such a gracious son, a compassionate, forgiving, loving son, that when he gazed upon him, he transmitted everything he had and saved his father. That is the power of the saints. And that, believe me, is worth sacrificing everything you have for.
Thank you.
Right.
I've got a couple of questions regarding lying. Is there any justification for lying to prevent hurting someone's feelings?
To prevent hurting somebody's feelings?
Yeah, any justification?
Well, naturally, again, this thing is lying is one of these moral things. Is it right to lie or not? I'm going to give you a dilemma here, like I've done before. Let's say your young child, 4-year-old, says, "Mother, how was I born?" Do you think it is appropriate to tell the child the full truth of the gory details of going to the hospital and gushing out? Or is it easy to say we just went to the hospital and we got you from there? Now that's a lie, technically.
I know.
But it's a non-malicious lie. It's designed not to hurt. Remember, the golden rule is not the lying or the truth. Do no harm. So, if they told the truth, which is a good thing to be always truthful as best as you can, but if it causes harm, you find another way, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, it would do harm. Similarly, let's say, there was a bandits coming down and they're chasing somebody, and they're going to kill him. You don't know the story between them, but they stop you and say, "Which way did he go?" You say, "I don't know, I didn't see him." You did. Right? You say, "I don't know, I wasn't looking which way he went." But you did. That's a lie. But if you told the truth, that would have ended up in harm. So therefore, the rule is do no harm, not whether it's truth or lie or anything like that. There's always be truthful where you can, always be honest. What we mean by being truthful is not that. It means don't deceive anybody. Don't be dishonest, right, in your dealings, right? That's the problem. If you lie and cheat for self-gain at the detriment to the person, then that is harmful, isn't it? So malicious lying as well. Like if you maliciously lie because you don't like somebody, so you make up some rumour and you spread gossip. That's harmful, that's malicious. Again, the golden rule here is always do no harm. So if your so-called telling the truth is going to cause harm to somebody else, you stay out of it. Let them resolve their own business. It's not for you to get involved. Yeah, it's not your business. And if somebody directly asks you, "Did you do this?" and you think, if I say the truth, will it result in harm? If so, no. Just dismiss it. Change the subject, say, "I don't know." It's always best to stay neutral and keep out of the way.
Thank you. How do we stop constantly lying to ourselves and making assumptions about reality?
I take it that the questioner means looking at the reality from a very human or lower level perspective as opposed to a higher perspective. The only way to stop yourself doing that is to raise your level of awareness. If you raise your level of awareness through spiritual practice and spiritual learning, then your ability to understand what is happening around you increases. And this is a journey. So that's the best way to practice spirituality, to seek and inquire about spirituality. And then slowly, your level of awareness will tell you the truth. And once you know the truth, we mean the spiritual truth, the divine truth, then you won't lie to yourself anymore about the false truth. What if you're really going to be honest with yourself? You say, if I don't know, don't make up a story. Why make up a truth that's not true? Because you have no proof. So when you make assumptions about creation, as this one is saying, let's say, it's based upon ignorance. What assumptions can you make? If it's based upon ignorance, it cannot be truthful. So if you seek the truth, the highest truth, then lying to yourself about it by saying, "I know the truth now at this level," means you're lying to yourself, and you're absolutely right. This is not the right thing to do. Yes?
The mind, does it have like a lot of tricks up its sleeve to like stop you from like gaining more?
No tricks.
Alignment?
It just is nature.
Right.
The mind has a nature.
Stop you from like questioning things further.
Only because there's different levels of mind. You have the emotional mind, which deals in emotional reactions immediately, like this, so no thinking even. Then you have the intellectual mind that likes to debate it, moralize it, which is a little bit what we're doing here, right? Debating concepts. Then there's higher mind, and the higher mind is spiritual mind, who has an intuitive awareness. And intuitive awareness is not based upon logical reasoning, but nevertheless it's still valid. So once somebody's at a level of spiritual mind, higher mind, definitely their level of understanding, comprehension of the creation is far greater. It's the greatest it can be in the mind realm. It's not complete, because they don't know the story beyond the level of the mind.
Yeah.
But they understand everything that's happening within the mind. So we call this Brahmandi consciousness, or Brahmandi mind. And attaining the level of Brahma is considered to be the ultimate for the mind game. Yeah? Anybody else have any questions?
No, one
Yeah.
important point. You know the karmic system about law and cause and effect? That's not a concept, is it?
No, it exists.
It's actual law.
It
we
exists.
spoke like
Look at
religious-
yourself.
Spoke like a
The
religious
problem
person.
is, put a knife to your hand and it cuts and bleeds and you pay the pain. Is it
Yeah.
real or are you imagining this?
Yeah.
If you poke yourself with a red hot poker, you feel the pain, yeah?
Right.
There's a consequence.
The law
If you
people
put your hand on a hot coal, you're going to burn. There's a consequence.
Yeah.
So it's your reality.
Yeah.
Yes, from the level of the soul, it's not real.
Yeah.
Even that. But when you're functioning at this level, it's very real to you. And your job is to get the hell out.
Yeah.
You cannot make this world perfect, but you can get yourself out by making yourself perfect. Yes,
Who created karma, and is it a trap? Like,
it is a trap. It's designed as a very good trap because it's designed to keep the creation going. It's a long story of who created karma. You see, at the origin of creation, when the Lord divided itself up into 16 attributes, one of those attributes was the ego attribute, which we call Mahakal, or the negative power. Now, the role of that attribute, which was imperfect, was to create an imperfect creation, knowing full well, when the Lord divided itself up into 16 attributes, that imperfection would result in an imperfect creation below the level of perfect creation. So we have two divides of creation. We have the perfect creation, which goes up to the third realm, which is the region of soul. And then we have the imperfect creation below the third realm, including the physical realm. So the one who governs the imperfect creation, we call them the negative power. And that has been termed by the saints as Kal. Now, in religions, they call this devil or shaitan, or Mara in Buddhism. Various religions have given it their own name. But this one is the one who created the imperfect creation, according to the law of karma. Because he's imperfect, right? To create imperfection, a system had to be put into place in which this imperfection could be manifested. So therefore, the one had to become the many. Now, if the truth is one, when you divide the creation into two, it becomes the many. It becomes imperfect. Because perfection is one, stillness. Imperfection is duality. So the creation of duality created the law of karma. The moment you have duality, then you have one side or the other camp. You have something called choice. And the moment you have choice, you're creating karma. In the spiritual realm, there's no karma. So Kal, or the negative power, has been the one who created karma, but not without the Lord's blessing. It's not the way the religion portray that we
it's
have
like
this
a game,
evil do.
like-
It is a game. It's a play, a divine play, yes. The Lord, when he created the creation, created it for drama and adventure. So the souls could have a dramatic experience away from perfection, away from truth, to know the opposite, to enjoy the truth and perfection even more. It grows all the more. We know this from a point of view, we lose something very valuable. When we lose something and then we find it again, we treasure it even more. The loss has created a gain for us. Love is like that. The love game, or the truth game, is like that. When we lose it, we appreciate it even more when we get it back again. And that's exactly how the Lord is constantly manifesting its love game. It's playing this game of love, of truth, of wonder, by creating an adventure which is separate. Then the souls undergo this adventure. Remember, all the souls are part and parcel of the Lord. There's no difference between the ocean and the drop of the ocean, actually. And then when the drops go back into the ocean, they celebrate. What a wonderful thing, we've been the ocean all this time. They were always the ocean. But when they merge with the ocean, now they celebrate.
So we have to find our way back.
Yes, we have to find our way back from a human perspective. From the Lord's perspective, he pulls you back when the time is right.
So he's doing everything really.
The Lord does everything. But when that feeling comes within us, the idea of these talks is to allow you to recognize these things that are happening within you. For example, if that pull is coming within you, that feeling is coming with you from nowhere, it's not intellectual, then you act upon it, what to do with it. So these talks help you to understand that this is okay. It's okay to feel like this. It's okay to feel disconnected from the world. It's okay to feel disenchanted with the world. It's okay to feel at odds with the world. You're not abnormal. It's just that you're now beginning your journey of extracting yourself from this world. And there's a process involved. So the idea of all these talks is to give reassurance to all those weirdos out there, you could say, or quirky people who seem to not be one of the masses, that it's okay to be different. It's okay to be like this. And in fact, it's a blessing that you're undergoing this journey. And at each stage that you are getting these feelings and things generating within you, a talk is there to help you understand this for the mind. Once you cross the level of the mind, then the inner Shabbat, the inner connection takes over. No talks are necessary. So all these talks and everything is for people who are somewhere along this journey, and they need that reassurance that they're doing okay, or what else they can possibly do. And if they have certain feelings coming in them, why these feelings are there, what does it mean?
I think that loneliness is always there with everybody, I think.
Loneliness is always there because we're separated from the truth.
Yeah.
Everyone is lonely. In fact, the most lonely people are the ones who are in the middle of a crowd. When you're alone, there's a difference between loneliness and aloneness. So for example, a meditating monk who's sitting in a cave, he doesn't feel lonely, but he is alone. Aloneness is a choice.
Yeah.
Loneliness is not a choice. That's the difference. But you see, that loneliness means it makes you query this world. How is this possible? I'm surrounded by this family and all these people, yet I still feel lonely. What a mystery is that? All of these things are designed to make you question existence itself. So it should direct you towards that. And that's why talks like this are helpful, because it says this is okay. It means you are starting to make that inquiry and develop this further. Be free, be natural, be true to yourself. This path is not about anything falseness. You must always be true to yourself. Go natural, be natural. Wherever the feelings you have, let it be. And let it develop, let it grow. Nurture it. So by listening to spirituality, mixing with spiritual people, you're feeding this growth. And as you evolve, this growth develops and you become more and more enlightened, and then new situations occur, new problems, new questions occur. But all this way you're being supported. So this path is not without support. But all of this happens not from you. It is acausal. It does not come from the causal realm. It does not come from the mind. It comes from the soul. And the soul and the Lord are one. The ocean and the drop are one. Make no mistake about that. The properties of the drop of the ocean and the ocean are no different. If you say that the scale is the difference, okay, the scale is the difference. Because the ocean contains many drops, all identical. Yeah? But that's the only difference. Yeah. The qualities of the soul and the qualities of the Lord are exactly the same. That's why in spirituality they say, first seek self-realization, then God-realization. Why not the other way around? Because it makes more sense when you learn who you are. That's much easier. Because the Lord is everything. You cannot see the Lord. The Lord is everything. If you show to me, well, show me the Lord. I said, where? I don't know where to look because the Lord is everywhere. How can you not see it?
So Carl is the Lord as well.
Yes. Carl is the Lord manifested in the form of something we call a negative power. But it's all part of the game. Yeah? There has to be rules to the game. And we vilify Carl. We say he's bad, he's evil, he's demonic, he's all these things. No, he's just doing his job. Yeah. And his job is to give you an adventure in this creation. Were it not for Carl, you would not have this adventure.
So everything is right.
Everything is right.
Nothing is wrong.
Nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. Everything is as it is. Yeah. It's evolving exactly as it should be. Your job is, if that capacity is within you to escape, to get out and to connect with the whole truth where you can see the origin of all this, then go. But that pull is not dependent on your thinking. It comes from deep within, and it is a helplessness. All disciples or followers of the truth are helpless in this. Because it does not come from reasoning. If it comes from reasoning, they can switch it on and off. 1 minute they're in, 1 minute they're out. No. That pull that comes from within, whether the mind raises an objection or not, is something beyond the level of the mind. Now if you speak to anybody who's on this journey, who feels that pull, that restlessness within, they can't control it, they can't stop it, and they can't do anything about it. But they can only gain reassurance by asking somebody else, is this okay? Am I going crazy or am I fine? So no, this is fine. They say thank you. Then they have peace of mind. Because the mind is always querying everything. You know? So the mind is the obstacle we have in the sense, but it's no real obstacles in the case of the Lord. The saints say the mind is the obstacle we must overcome, because that's all the mind understands. There's an obstacle to overcome. But actually, in truth, the Lord is pulling the strings, the Lord is rescuing us. Where is the obstacle? The Lord is beyond the level of obstacles. So if the Lord wants to pull us into his company, he'd do so whether there's an obstacle or not. But for the sake of debate and talks and things like this, we say, oh, the mind is an obstacle, it's in the way. But not really.
No, because Bullesha's Guru said there's nothing to it, like.
There is nothing to it. It's a simple point of planting your attention from here to there. That's it. That's the simplicity of it. But that doesn't happen by your control. That's the bit that's missing from that statement. It's actually the Lord's grace who does it for you, and then you get the credit.
Could it just happen?
Anytime. You could just walk out of here, go to your lunch and become enlightened. Just like that. After, look what happened to Bulleh Shah's father.
Oh, God, yeah.
And a moment's glance and he was enlightened. So spirituality is instant. Instant. It is true. You can get instant enlightenment. Yeah. Bulleh Shah's father got it. King Janak got it. Yeah. So yes.
But are we emotional in terms of like why we judge, or is it the other way around? Do we judge first and then?
It's because no. It's because we're emotional that we judge.
Right.
Yeah, and
what makes us so
emotions.
emotional?
Huh?
What makes us so emotional?
Because the lower nature of the mind is to run on emotions which do not follow logic. We have three levels of mind: non-logical mind, which is emotional mind, which is what people react and then they later on regret it. You know, when people do something out of emotion, oh no, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that. They can react on emotion. Then the intellectual mind kicks in and says, no, I shouldn't have done that. Then they feel sorry. But that's the end of it for most people. Right, even if they get that far, some people just live a permanent emotional mind and they're totally complete messes, yeah? But then you have the spiritual ones who say, hold on a minute, I'm intellectualizing this, I'm judging this, I'm making statements about this, I shouldn't even do that. See, so depending on where you're at, you react accordingly.
Well, most people take it emotional.
I would say in this day and age now, a lot of people are heading towards the intellectual. In the past, mostly were emotional. So if you look at all the teachings in the past, they were very driven towards the emotions. They were very emotively worded, poetic, and so on, because they were geared towards the emotional human beings. Now we're much more intellectual. So if you notice the nature of satsangs, the nature of teachings have changed. They've become more intellectual to meet the intellectual demand. And when the Satguru comes eventually, we'll be all spiritually aware, then there won't be any intellectual teaching at all. There'll be just practice, methodology, right? Do this and do that, no questions needed.
So what happens after Satya? It starts again?
Yes, from the world's point of view, the whole cycle goes in 8 parts, not 4. So you have, for example, from Satyug, you have the minor Satyug going upward, the ascending and descending. So after the ascending Satyug, then you go to descending Satyug. And so it descends down again and then goes up like a circle. Remember, the whole universe is cyclic, like the wheel of Dharma, which is the symbol of both Hinduism and Buddhism. The wheel. Why the wheel? Why not a square or a pentagon or line? Yeah, because it goes round forever. And like the beginning, has no beginning, no end. It's endless. The wheel is endless. So it's endless, this cycle. So you're never going to get to the end of it. So why not just get out? Why not escape? If you have that feeling within you that you want to really know the truth, like a magical adventure, you go on.
What happens when you get out?
You're free of everything. Then you can enjoy it from a spectator point of view alone, without being a participant.
Just enjoy it.
You just enjoy it. Because when you escape the karmic realms, you begin the journey of stillness. And this is something that people again, the mind cannot understand, because the mind is moving. The mind stays alive because it's constantly vibrating, resonating and moving. So therefore the mind doesn't understand perfect stillness. If I said to you, absolute bliss is perfect stillness, you will say, that's boring. You mean I'm not doing anything? I'm not achieving anything? I'm not striving for anything? But what you don't understand is that all the agitations of the mind are because of this motion, whether it's through thought or physical activity, whatever. If you can become perfectly still, and they talk about stilling the mind in yogi, but they don't understand the meaning of that. Stilling the mind brings peace. Now, if stilling the mind, even a little bit, brings peace in yogic practice, imagine what perfect stillness comes. Then it gives us perfect peace. Hence the term perfect living master, perfection and so on. Because we want perfect bliss, perfect peace, perfect love. And that can only happen in the state of perfection. And what is the state of perfection? Non-agitation. And that's why Satgurus, the fifth realm, the highest realm, is also known as the motionless plane. Because absolutely nothing happens there in the terms of agitation. It is a state of perfect stillness, of perfect awareness. Now, awareness does not require movement. For example, I could be sitting here and I could be looking at the marvel of creation in front of me with my eyes without moving. Yeah? I'm in perfect stillness, so I don't miss a thing. And I observe the wonder of it all and the marvel of it all. I don't need to do anything. In fact, people practice this by looking out the window. Some people sit there all day looking out the window, watching the world go by. And they find joy in that. You might say that's boring, but for them it is happiness. But they're simply imitating the higher state of being. That this stillness, this magic of perfect stillness, means that everything is aware to you. Another example of this is water. Like if you have a perfectly still body of water, you can see perfect reflection. When a little thing drops in it, little ripples, it agitates the water, you can't see very clear. So this is what perfect stillness means. When you're perfectly still, there's no agitation, you can see very clearly everything. Everything, this awareness becomes perfectly clear to you. And that itself is a wonder. To witness the entire creation from the Lord's point of view unfolding.
And it stays with you.
Always. Until your time is to come back if you want. You have a choice then. You can either go on to complete oneness, where you lose your existence as an individual, or you can come back down for another go, knowing full well that you'll be rescued in the end. So from the soul's point of view, you're fearless, because the soul does not fear the karmic world, because it knows that it cannot be harmed in any way. It'll go there, create a mind tool of a character and play a part. And once it's enjoyed watching itself playing this part and the time finishes, it packs up and goes. Right? But then maybe, after so many times of doing this, the soul has reached a point now where it no longer wants to be part of creation at all. Now, this is something, again, really difficult for the mind to understand. The desire for annihilation. The desire to become one with the truth and become the truth and lose your individuality. So this is the height of love. The height of love is to become the beloved. You lose yourself in the beloved. This is something the mind cannot understand. It can theorize about, but it cannot understand the pull of that oneness, of becoming whole again, of becoming one again, of the drop becoming the ocean, the entirety of the ocean. Yeah. Now the soul can in Satgurus progress up to Anami Lok, the nameless region, where no souls exist, just the Lord. The Supreme Lord exists on its own as one entity. So in Satgurus, the souls are somewhat still separated from the Lord. Although we say that this is the collective of souls, because you realize that all other souls are part of you, yourself, that they're all other versions of you, it is like a jigsaw that has been made up. So the jigsaw of a tree, let's say. You overall, when you step back, you look at it and you say, beautiful tree as a picture. That's true, it's a oneness, it's a tree. But if you look closely, it's made up of individual parts, all playing their part to make that oneness. That's the state in Satgurus. The one and the many exist at the same time. However, when you go to antiquity, it's a very different situation. The progress there, through Alak, Agam and Anami, is a journey of annihilation. And this is a journey of absolute love to the nth degree, where eventually you lose yourself and become the beloved. The beloved is the only truth. And that is the best way to explain the state of working towards an army lock. And very few, even saints, request annihilation. Completely so. Where they lose themselves wholly in the beloved. So even saints, there are different levels of saints. So one who craves this will in time merge with an army lock and be forevermore gone. No question of them coming back. And but others are quite happy to still go around the merry-go-round a few times to save souls. They're still masters, they're still holy masters.
But they have a choice.
But they make that choice to come back into creation to help souls. Yeah. But the ultimate end game is annihilation. To lose yourself in the beloved, become one with that ocean completely, and do so absolutely happily so. It's a particular interest, let's say, I have. Okay, so, but this is rare, and most masters steer away from this, because when you start talking about annihilation of even the soul, people get fearful, because the mind doesn't like to be annihilated. So they think, but if I'm not even going to exist as a soul, I no longer exist. Oh, and woe is me, precious is me, right? But it's only because they don't have that awareness. They don't understand the bigger picture. But when they reach the level of Satgurus, that's all made aware to them. They understand this two-way journey. Yeah, that you can go either way. Either you can come back into another creation, even not even this one. There's many creations, infinite numbers of them. Yeah. You can come back as a master in any one of them, let's say, or you can say, that's it. I'm so much a lover of the truth. I want to become the source of the truth itself, and not even separate. You see, but that's very rare. Yeah. Any more questions? No, that's it. I think I've all tired you out with all this.
I do have some random questions.
Oh, okay, sorry, go ahead.
I was just waiting for
I thought you finished.
Right.
Go ahead.
Does that mean no one has any more regarding the theme? Because I'm going to go on to some really random ones now.
Okay.
Yeah, is that all right with everybody?
Right.
Okay, first question is about biofeedback therapy.
Okay, yes.
I recently came across a practitioner of the Nelson quantum biofeedback therapy. It is a system that incorporates the use of quantum physics principles and is designed to assess and address stresses in the body by measuring the body's energetic and physiological responses. The machine is claimed to be a diagnostic tool, but can also treat and rebalance energetic electrical blockages in the body. Is this an acceptable alternative therapy that can be used for overall well-being, or is this just pseudoscience or harmful even?
Okay. There's lots of different techniques based upon quantum biofeedback. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about this questioner. It's obviously comes from a particular point of view. The Nelson quantum biofeedback therapy, which is a therapy that's been practiced since the 1980s. It's also known as the adductor machine. So they have this machine, this quantum machine, which they call the adductor machine. And this device was invented by Professor Bill Nelson in the late 1980s. And he, well, now she, long story about sex change, we won't go into that, claims that it is a highly sophisticated biofeedback and bioresonance device developed to detect and reduce stress. So the theory behind is that all illness is caused by the mind and stresses, which to a point is correct at a high level, which is the greatest cause of physical, mental, and emotional problems in modern times, which is kind of true. Stress is the main problem of the 21st century. Now, apparently, the device is the result of more than 40 years of research in the field of bioenergy and quantum physics, and it is said to open a new door to a new system of medicine termed quantum medicine. So people may have heard about quantum medicine, and this is one of the means of quantum medicine. Now, quantum medicine involves viewing life, health and disease as simply a vibratory energetic field consisting of billions of particles of light known as photons, that exchange information continuously. So basically we are simply a bunch of photons held together by consciousness, and these photons, in order to keep the body and life going, exchange information continuously with each other. So, and therefore spirit and matter are one in reality. So from this point of view, the origin of disease then is no longer a purely biological problem, from what they're saying, but a lack of information, meaning exchange, that there's a breakdown between these photons communicating efficiently. The symptom, in other words, the physical symptom that we have is only a response to this breakdown. So that is their belief, this breakdown in communication. So that's the belief system. Now, with this quantum device, technology device, the therapist can connect to the client through a range of vibratory levels, from densest to finest. So they've got these wave generating machine that can give off dense or finer vibrational levels of energy, giving the body the means to rebalance its deep individual magnetic field. So because the body is electrically maintained, it's actually made of electromagnetism. So therefore they're using this bioenergetic field to balance this electromagnetic field and make it all harmonious again. And if this is harmonious, then the body is said to work in perfect order. That's the idea behind it. But it's interesting, it's based upon some fundamental scientific concepts, such as that the universe is a field of energy in which everything, including us, is simply energy in forms, which is correct. Ultimately that's true. So there is some science behind this. You can make up your own mind how far you want to develop this. Then, as a consequence, by healing our energetic body with energy, makes the chemistry of the body change, which is true. You can give energy to the body to change the way the body works. We know this, many systems in medicine now use energy, to even sound energy, for example, to break up a stone in the gallbladder or the kidney. So there are many systems of energy that's used now. The body's electrical in nature, that's correct, because all atoms and molecules are electrically charged or neutral. Therefore, sort of reactivity to stresses in the body, so the way we react to stress in the body, can be measured electrically. Hence the invention of this machine, the adductor machine. So health can be measured electronically. The body is innately intelligent in design, which is true, because the body is consciousness. Although they don't understand biomechanics in the full sense, they're kind of grasping at the tails, the skirts of it all. But they're going in the right direction with this. So because the body is innately intelligent in design and has the ability to heal itself in the right, if the right conditions or the right stimuli or frequencies, as they see it, are provided. So their idea is to give the right frequencies to the body and it can heal itself. This is very conceptual and very theoretical at the moment, but that's the theory behind it. And from a scientific point of view, it's correct technically. Whether it's able to be done, that's another matter. Now, the electromagnetic frequencies or microcurrents can be used to re-establish the correct electrical and biochemical functionings of the body. So that's the point of using this machine. So this question I was asking about, is this therapy okay? So overall, this bioresonance and biofeedback device makes it possible to query the body, In other words, it can also be used to read the body's electrical situation for its most acute and chronic imbalances. So it reads these imbalances and is able to correct the stressors that cause ill health. So this is so this is a mechanism by which certain therapists can use to heal the body. It's an alternative system to the use of drugs, nutrition, and other things. And it doesn't harm the body. It doesn't cause harm. And because it doesn't cause harm, therefore it is not. You don't have to avoid it. If somebody wants to go down that route, it's perfectly fine because it doesn't actually cause any harm.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question about happiness.
Right.
Is humanity overall more happy nowadays or in the past?
I would say there's no difference, because what we don't know is that the human cravings that we have today were with us in the past. They have not changed. Since humanity has been here, their cravings for certain joys and happiness remain exactly the same. The methods to achieve it have changed,
Technology.
but not the actual cravings. If you go back to archaic humans, cavemen, they still valued family bonds, relationships, protection of the self, the food, shelter. They had all these same things. They all wanted. It's just now we're more sophisticated about it. We don't just want a fare that we slap over. We want the latest designer garment. But we're still craving clothing. We still need food. Now we go to a supermarket. Then they were hunter-gatherers, right? And they had these relationships like love, between partners. They had children. They had all the same issues you have today. There's no difference. Human beings by very nature are programmed in a certain way. However, the way it is expressed has changed because we live in different times. We have a lot more way of satisfying these needs than they did in the past. However, the cravings are still there. So when you talk about happiness, really, happiness is the absence of cravings, desires, and attachments. Yes? So if you have the absence of these things, then yes, you can say they're happy at any time. But as long as these things are there, right, the miseries are just the same. They're just more sophisticated misery.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is about discipline. I'm struggling with discipline and with meditating in the early morning. What advice can you give me?
The thing is, preparation is everything. If you don't prepare your life for this and you don't center your life around this objective, then it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be hit and miss. One day you're okay, one day you're not. But if you have the single objective of seeking the truth, and the means for realizing this truth within yourself, which is only the place you can find it, not outside, is through meditation, then you understand the value of meditation and contemplation. Then nobody needs to convince you to do it. You shouldn't be doing it because you're told. You should be doing it because you want to. So the main thing is create this as a need. Develop it, but it becomes a need for you. Just like you need to go to the bathroom, you need to eat. Make it a need that is automatic. So all the time prepare adequately to turn this curiosity into a need. And once it becomes a need, there is no question of having to convince you.
Thank you. Next question about feelings. If someone is quite emotional in general, what can be done to curb this?
Knowledge. Krishna said knowledge is power. The more knowledge you acquire, the more you increase your scale within the mind realm of conduct, because you increase your awareness, your understanding, and as the standing and comprehension increases, you react less to the lower things because you understand the reality of it. How could you possibly, now, like for example, if you've never seen a bulb, let's say I go back 600 years and I produce a light bulb, right, to some ordinary, even a king of that land, he would be fearful of it. He would say, "'Tis the sun in the bottle," right? How could he touch it? Doesn't it burn your hand?
Yeah.
I said, "No, Your Majesty, touch it." And let's say by you demonstrating it's safe, then you let him touch it. Next time he sees the bulb, he no longer fears it. And that's how we learn. As we progress spiritually and even mindfully, we become less fearful, less concerned about the lower things, because we've understood the meaning of them. So ignorance is usually the cause of most people's suffering.
Thank you. Okay, question about God. What is the difference between having faith in God versus having trust in God?
I think they're two arms of the same body, the left and the right. Yeah. That's like saying which one is better, the left arm or the right arm. I think you perhaps need both.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't work one with the other. They're not in a competition. They come together.
Okay, question about psychology and philosophy. It's like a two-part question. Don't know how long you've got. What is the relationship between psychology and philosophy, and what is the brief history of how these two things were created?
Goodness.
And
I'm not going to go too much into the history because you can read all about that on the internet even. Psychology is a relatively new scientific concept. So whereas philosophers in the past, I will tell you a little bit of the difference, where philosophers in the past were all about debating concepts of the mind, Freud and others who discovered psychology or invented it, you could say, they thought that all the workings of the mind are associated within a functioning brain. Therefore, the function of the brain chemically and electrically is what results in the way we think. Okay, so this is taking a very purely scientific point of view as opposed to a philosophical point of view. They didn't understand that the mechanics, medical mechanics of it. They just knew that from our head, possibly the brain, that we think, and I think, therefore I am. Yeah, the famous saying. So from that point of view, they had these mental discussions, right? Psychologists came along and saying, well, the type of mental understanding you have and discussions you have is based upon the chemistry of the brain. Let's see now how the shape and the format of the brain determines the way you think and the way you behave. So behavior became this psychological game in which by measuring the neurons and the connections and the waves and theta waves and gamma waves and all that alpha waves, you determine the way that the brain performs and therefore the behavior, and we call this psychology. Then because it's a two-way street where you can treat it chemically with antipsychotics or mind-altering drugs on one hand, or you can use therapy like talking to help change the chemistry within it. So both things were used, counseling and therapy and drugs, to try and address the issue, and that covers psychology. Yeah, because interestingly, it's a two-way street, and you can influence the state of the mind through a conversation. Yeah, well, we know all that, because if I say to you, here, this is the directions to this supermarket, you'll follow those directions and get there. If you couldn't register that information, you couldn't retain that information, it would be meaningless for me to tell you. So the fact that I can change your direction and where you're going by merely a talk, by merely explaining something to you is a magical thing. And psychologists thought, right, this is interesting. So conversation can change the way we think. But that can't be the only thing, because it comes from the brain, and the brain is a chemical machine. What about drugs? Maybe we could also change, and we have evidence of it, because we have hallucinogenics, drugs. And they change the way we feel as well. So I said, right, the brain is an interesting organ. I can apply drugs at one end, talk on the other end, and they meet in the middle somehow and hopefully get some sort of result. And the whole understanding of this was involved in psychology. So philosophy, which is an ancient from the time of the Greeks and even beyond, that it was all about debating concepts, like wider concepts of the mind. They didn't care why they were thinking these things, why the mind was doing this. They were looking at it from a bigger perspective, that, okay, these are the issues we see in the world, how do we make sense of it? Whereas psychology narrows this down to the brain and say, we want to understand the workings of the brain. Why are they thinking like this? Why is a criminal like this? Why is a philanthropist like this? Why is a painter like this? Why is a musician like this? So they wanted to understand it from a much more personal point of view. That's the difference.
Thank you. Last question. It's about Vedic life charts.
Okay.
Do you recommend spiritual practitioners have a Vedic life path chart done, as it could shed light on their inherent strengths and weaknesses?
I don't think there's any harm in it, as long as they can take the truth. Because obviously they're going to go to find out where they're heading in life and what their makeup is all about, but they're not ready for the truth, I would say avoid it. If you can handle the truth, go for it. And yes, it can help you. It can help make sense of things. So yeah, it's one of those things that is a personal choice. But always say, can it help you? Does it cause harm? If seeking the truth or doing any activity causes harm, then wait.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anybody else have any questions? No, you're all enlightened. That's great. Okay, I think you have a well-earned lunch. So we're all getting there, don't worry. The mere fact that you're here is a good sign. So God bless you all. We hope to see you next month.
So dehi paje har ki sev Bhajo Gobind Pul mat ja मानस जानम का यही ला